Hey guys, my name is Vardhan and I'll be your instructor for today. So on behalf of Edureka, I welcome you all to this webinar on Linux tutorial, and in today's session, I'm going to give you a complete overview of Linux, okay? So it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you have good knowledge about Linux, but I'm going to teach you concepts that you can take away home and you can execute for yourself. So guys, before I get started, let me just take a quick confirmation from you people. I hope you can hear my voice and see my screen. If that's the case, please put that in the chat box and I'll get started. Okay, so I'm getting a couple of acknowledgements here. Ravi says he can hear my voice and see my screen, and so does Akash, and the same can be said for even Hemant. All right, so guys, seems like it's all fine. Let's get started with the session. All right, now before I get started with the first topic, let me just show you the agenda and tell you what we're going to cover today. Okay, so this is the agenda, and I'll be covering the topics in this flow. Okay, first I'll talk about the birth of Linux and tell you why they became popular. All right, and then I'll talk about the various distributions of Linux. Okay, so Linux is basically a kernel. Most of the people think that Linux is an operating system in itself. Well, that's not the case. So I'll talk about the various versions of Linux. Okay, the various operating systems of Linux. I will talk about those things, and then we'll get started with the hands-on right after that topic. Okay, so in the hands-on we have I've categorized this into different phases where I'll talk about the basic Linux commands first, and then I'll show you how to work with files and directories, and then I'll show you how to add and delete users. You will learn all those administration aspects, and finally there will be one networking aspect which I'll cover in Linux. Okay, so there is something called as SSH. Okay, SSH stands for Secure Shell, and this is used for communication. Supposing you want to communicate with the remote host, right? When I say remote host, it means a system that's located remotely, which you don't have physical access to. So that kind of a machine, how will you access that machine with the help of SSH? So I will talk about all these things, and yeah. So if you guys have any doubt or any problems during the session, please put that in the chat box, and I'll answer them right away. All right, guys? Cool, Ravi? Is it fine? All right, great. Ravi says that he's new to Linux. Oh, great, Ravi. No problem. That's exactly the target audience for this webinar, right? So, this is going to be a complete basic tutorial. And, for anyone that's going to get started with Linux, for let it be college students or professionals who are absolutely new, right? So we're all used to using Windows or Mac, right? So most of the people in here would have just used Windows because it's cheaper and it's better. But Linux is something that is a software developer's favorite operating system, right? So that's why there is so much hype and so much demand for Linux professionals and Linux administrators. And if you want to get started with a career in that domain, then we can get started from this tutorial from today. All right, guys? Okay, so without wasting much time, let's go to the first topic, and that is, why did Linux become popular? Well, before I talk about why they became popular, let's look at the birth of Linux, how things started off. Okay, so back in 1969, there was this person called in fact there were two people, Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson, right? So they were working in the AT&T Bell Labs, and what they did was they created this C programming, right? So we're all aware of programming, right? So we're all aware of these basic programming languages, right? So C is one of the most basic and one of the most effective and the root of all the other programming languages. So that was C, and it was them that developed C and the Unix operating system. So that was what happened in 1969. Okay, and then in the decade that followed, okay, so basically in the 1970s, people started developing or contributing to the development of these two things. Okay, so they started contributing to the development of the C programming language and the Unix operating system. So in our session, we'll discuss more on Unix operating system, and since it's about Linux, right? So Unix is basically the mother of Linux, because Linux is based on the Unix operating system. Okay, I'll tell you how that's the case in some more time, but that's why we are starting off with Unix operating system. Okay, so I'm now going to cover about C, and getting back to our slides. So it says growth of Unix because of open source collaboration, and there was commercial sale of Unix. Now, what this meant is that the product that Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson created, right? That those were something really attractive. They were some amazing software and operating systems that would power machines and computers. Now what this meant was they had to be developed to become even better, right? So they made it open source. It was when we say open source, it means that it was freely available to use by anyone. So anybody, any person, any scientist, or any engineer, or anybody could just get access to the source code and start improving that source code. And if they feel that they have improved the software in any way, then they can just give that code back to the developers. So basically it was all about collaborated development. So that's what happened with Unix operating systems. in the 70s, many hippies, scientists, they all collaborated together, wrote their own code, their own version of Unix operating system, and contributed to the development of Unix operating system. And since AT&T, they were the ones who built Unix, or the ones they were responsible for founding Unix. They were the ones that gained a lot of benefit. They got help from other people for developing the operating system, and what they did in turn was they made it a business, right? So they made money out of that by starting commercial sale of Unix. And this was something that did not go down well with many people. And this did not go down well with the other developers and scientists, because it was their effort which contributed to the growth of Unix. But however, they are not getting any benefits of Unix, because AT&T that was making money out of somebody else's work. So that's what happened in the 1970s. Okay, and then came the 1980s, which was a little more different. So instead of buying Unix from AT&T and having two different versions of Unix, one was a FreeBSD and the other one was the paid AT&T version of Unix. So instead of going to go for them, companies started developing their own Unix. So IBM came up with their own Unix version called the AIX. Solaris came up with their own version called the Sun operating system. And HP came up with their own version of Unix called HP UX. So there are other versions also, like POSIX and all these things. Now, since there were many versions, right, many flavors and many dialects of the same Unix operating system, it was becoming a little problematic, because each of the dialects would be a little different. So the IBM's Unix would be different from HP's Unix and Solaris's Unix, or it would be different from POSIX. Okay, so each of them would be different, but however, they're all based on the same thing. So it was unnecessary, confusion there with so many versions of Unix. So that is when this person called Richard Stallman came up with something called as the GNU project. Okay. So I told you earlier that Linux is just a kernel and not an operating system on its own. So what this person did was, he came up with something called as a free software movement. So he wanted something like, back in the 70s when everyone could collaborate and work on the same one single operating system. Like that, he tried to bring back that era. And this free software movement of his, this idea led to the GNU project. So the GNU project was all about people being able to access an operating system for free, and developing that operating system. So that's what this led to, and that's what we call even today, right? So GNU is basically the operating system, and the Linux is the kernel that powers the operating system. So a combination of these two is what results in one of the distributions of Linux. So we have multiple distributions like Ubuntu, CentOS, Red Hat, Debian, Fedora, all these things. So all these things are flavors, a combination of one of the operating systems and the Linux kernel. Okay, so that's what they are. So this is what happened in the 1980s, and then mid to late 1980s was when Richard Stallman came into the picture, and he came up with the GNU project where people could develop and use free operating system. So that's what happened here. And the event that happened after this is what is a result of today's world. Okay, so after that, then in the 1990s, so probably 1991 or 1992, that was when this person called Linus Torvalds, who was still back in college at that time, he put the Linux kernel source code online. So he was trying to use the POSIX version with one hardware called 386. And he thought that it's compatible only with that hardware, and so he put the source code online for anyone to use. And later they found out that it could be used with the GNU, and that's when the whole thing gained popularity. So that's when we came up with something called as the Linux plus GNU, this whole term of having a kernel plus this operating system and getting them to work together. So that's what happened here. All right. So guys, that's how Linux was born. Okay. Now, without wasting any more time, let me go to the next slide and talk about the various distributions of Linux. So I told you that there are many versions like Ubuntu, CentOS, and also let's talk about those. And when we talk about distributions, the most important and the most famous ones are those of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Fedora, and Debian. Okay, so these three are primarily different companies and enterprises. Well, Debian is basically not one company. It's kind of, let's say a group of developers developing this version of Linux. Okay, this version of Linux and the Ubuntu version. So that is what Debian is. And the Red Hat is basically an enterprise. It's a company that is commercially selling the Linux distribution. Okay, and it's probably the most used and the most popular of them all. Why? Because they are very stable, they are very reliable, and as it's written here, servers and workstations, right? So it's the preferred Linux distribution for servers and workstations, the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So they have a free version, so that's called the CentOS. And today's demonstration, I'll be showing it to you on CentOS only. Okay. So they have that, and they have various other distributions. In fact, even Fedora, right, that which we are going to talk about next, even Fedora is a company that's funded by Red Hat itself. So it's again one of the variations of Red Hat, and Fedora has its own set of distributions under it, and that's about the Fedora distribution. Then comes the Debian. So this again I spoke about Debian. So Debian is the Linux distribution that is developed with the help of many developers. So this is not developed for commercial purpose. It's basically free and open source software, and anybody with the skills can start contributing to this software. And you have many other distributions, okay? So these are among the important and the commercial ones. And if you're talking about some of the free distributions which people can use, then they are Ubuntu, Linux Mint, CentOS, OpenSUSE, Gentoo, and many more. Okay, so there are almost 100 Linux distributions today, and you can use any of them. If you're getting started with Linux, then I would suggest you to either start off with Ubuntu or CentOS, because CentOS is something that's really reliable and that's really fast. Okay, and Ubuntu is the most popular Linux distribution out there. Okay, and so I read somewhere that Ubuntu is the third most used operating system. Okay, so that's what Ubuntu is all about. Of course, it's not as fast as CentOS, but still Ubuntu is a very popular and very handy tool. And Linux Mint is the other distribution which can be used for playing movies and listening to music, because this gives you more of a Windows-like interface. So that's what Linux Mint is. So we have various distributions like this. And yeah, so guys, any doubts? I mean, some of you told me that you people are newcomers and haven't started with Linux. So you can start off with one of these distributions mentioned here. You can either go for the Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or the Fedora, or the Debian, or the other operating systems which are based on them. Okay, so the CentOS here, it is based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Okay, so the RHEL, right, we call them RHEL. So they have the free version that they provide for enterprise users is that of CentOS. And Fedora, again, for that matter of fact, they have multiple distributions under them, under their name. And Debian are the people who are the founders of Ubuntu. Okay, so Ubuntu is a distribution that is based on Debian. And since Ubuntu is so popular, there are different versions of Ubuntu itself, right? There are other distributions like Xubuntu or Edubuntu, all these things, and they are the other versions of Ubuntu. So that's about the different Linux distributions. And you guys can probably, if you're newcomers, then I would suggest you to go for either Ubuntu or CentOS, like I said earlier. So it seems like people are all good. Okay, so I'm getting a couple of comments from people. All right, great. So let me go to the next slide then. Okay, so now we are in this slide, and let's talk about the features of Linux here. Okay, so the Linux features, when we say features, it's basically those compared to the other operating systems, compared to Windows and compared to Mac. Okay, so compared to them, how does Linux perform, and what are the benefits with Linux? And first of all, we have this feature of the updates being very easy to be performed. If you have any software in your operating system, or if it's the operating system itself which you want to update, then it's really easy with Linux. It's just going to be one command that you need to run, and you can run that command from the terminal. Okay, for those guys who don't know what a terminal is, so let me just open my Linux version and show you what a terminal is. Okay, so this is my CentOS version of Linux. All right, and then you have different options here, right? So the terminal that you see here, this is what I was talking about. So when you open the terminal, there's another window that opens. Okay, now this is the command line interface. So when I say command line interface, this is where I can put in my commands, and I can get my software or my kernel to listen to those commands and perform actions by creating a process for those commands. So the whole benefit of Linux is this CLI, because the CLI is really helpful. If you're going for Windows or something, you have a very good GUI. All right. So even in Linux, you have a GUI. So let me show you the GUI aspect. So similar to Windows, you can just go to the computer and you can go to file system. You can open various other folders and directories. So you have multiple directories and folders here, right? So I mean, directories are basically folders. Folders is what you call in Windows, and here you call them directories. So I can go into any of these directories, and I can close them like this. I can access any of these directories. I can access any software or anything that's installed anywhere. So Linux basically provides a GUI too. Okay, but the thing with Linux is that you also have a terminal, right? This terminal is basically a command line interface where you can put in your commands, and you can get the software to behave the way you want to. You can run certain commands, you can install software, you can run programs, you can run codes. So that's what the advantage with the CLI is. And this is basically the reason why it's very popular among all these software developers. Okay, so I told you earlier that software developers is a favorite tool, right? Linux. So that's because Linux is the free version of Unix, and it's also possible to develop and create so many programs. So that's the thing with Linux. So that's why it's so popular. So back in the slides, I told you that it was very easy to perform updates, right? So those updates can be easily performed by just running a few commands here. By writing one single command, I can update a particular software. Supposing I have Java installed in my system, then I can just write a command for updating that. I can just say sudo yum update and the package name. If it's Java, I can just put the Java version. If it's any other language, or if it's any other software, then I can put that software name over here and update the application. So that's how simple and that's how easy it is to update softwares over here. So I was talking about this aspect. So let me go back to the slides and talk about the other features. Okay, so that was how updates can be easily performed. And then another feature is that the software is free. You don't have to pay for Linux. So because Windows, of course, you all know that Windows is paid. You can't, have a pirated version. If you're caught having a pirated version, you will be fined. Of course, home, desktop users and home users don't really have that problem because there are no routine checks. But companies cannot use the pirated version of Windows, because if there are audits, they can come and seize the computers and put a heavy fine on the company. So that's what we say when the free software licensing is there in Linux. Because you don't have to have any license. You can just get all the folks in your company to work on Linux for free. So that's the free software licensing aspect. And then you have the access to source code, right? So when we say access to source code, I told you that back in the 70s, people could just collaborate together and develop the operating system. So that is what I'm talking about here. So the source code for running this OS, basically the Ubuntu or the CentOS source code is available to you, and you can customize it. And you can change it the way you want. You can make it behave the way you want to. And if it's a really good feature that you've added, then you can also share your discoveries and your features with other people, with other fellow developers. You can do all these things. So you have complete access to the source code, and you have complete freedom with what your OS can do and how it behaves. But the same thing cannot be said for Windows, right? So Windows, you cannot change it completely. You don't get access to the source code at all, and you can't change all the features the way you want to, because that's a proprietary tool, and it's programmed to behave in one way. And if you try changing too many things, then your Windows will report. So that's what is going to happen. So that's about the access to source code feature. And then we have another feature that is multiple distributions. So I spoke about the different distributions in the previous slide. So the basic distributions are those of Red Hat, Debian, or Fedora, right? So you have various versions of them itself. You have different flavors in the Red Hat, and you have different ones in the Debian, and again Fedora has a lot of other distributions. Further, many distributions are based on them. So you have so many options, and if you don't like one of the distributions, then you can work on another distribution, right? So if you don't like CentOS because you don't get support for everything, then you can use Ubuntu. Okay, it is the most popular operating system, and it has support for almost every application and every software, so you can use that. But if you're unhappy with the speed of Ubuntu, then you can probably switch to CentOS. So you have all that flexibility, and all this flexibility without any cost. Okay, no cost with respect to energy or having to learn something new, because all these are Linux. At the end of the day, the commands will be the same. Almost 98% of commands will be the same. There are just going to be minor differences in the commands that will be executed in the different distributions. But yeah, 98% of them will be the same. You won't have a tough transition time also. You'll have you can gain so many benefits by using Linux. And the last but not the least, right? So this feature is probably the highlight of Linux. So it says better malware protection. So when we say better malware protection, we say that it's the ultimate. Okay, in Windows, if you people would have noticed that you need an antivirus, because it's prone to viruses and attacks and bugs and all these things. So people can easily hack into your system, right? So the same thing cannot happen with Linux. You don't need an antivirus at all. Linux is completely antivirus free. Okay, 100%. You don't need an antivirus, and in fact, you don't even have an antivirus. But of course, it doesn't mean that it's completely secure also. Security is something that's really good, but it's still developing in Linux. But it's definitely better than Windows, right? So you can be sure that no one's going to hack your system so easily. So that's what Linux is all about. So guys, that brings us to the end of this slide of Linux features. Okay. And if you guys have any doubts even now about Linux and how good Linux is, then that should have been clarified and put to rest by now. Okay, so I have not got any question from any participant. And if you guys have any doubts, please put them in the chat box and I'll answer them. All right. Okay. So moving on. So enough with the theory. Now let's straight away get started with our hands-on. Okay. So I'm gonna show you how to run commands and how to do various other things with the CentOS operating system. Okay. So first of all, the first part of this hands-on session is going to be about an introduction to the terminal and the various commands and the basic commands and how to browse through the different directories. Okay, so we use commands like pwd, clear, ls, and cd commands. Okay, now let me go to my CentOS. Okay, in case I forgot to mention it earlier, then guys, I'm using a VM here. Okay, so I'm running my Windows operating system on my laptop, and I have a VirtualBox installed, and in the VirtualBox I've instantiated my Linux virtual machine. Okay, so my Linux distribution here is CentOS. Let me just show you another thing. Okay, so this is the VirtualBox that I was talking about. This is what I'm running in my Windows, and I have multiple options, so I can choose any VM that I want to. So this is the VirtualBox, and all these are the different VMs that we have in my VirtualBox. So currently I'm running this VM called master. Okay, and later on I'll be turning on even this VM called slave. Now I'll be doing these two for showing you how SSH works. So I told you in the agenda slide that I'll get two remote machines to access each other, right? So for that purpose I need these two VMs, and of course both are CentOS. And yeah, as you can see, the information, it says that 32-bit CentOS system. I've called it or named it master, and this one is named it as slave. So similarly, I have the Ubuntu also. So the Ubuntu 64-bit is this. So let me just turn on the Ubuntu and show you how Ubuntu looks like. Okay, so let's just wait for some time. Okay, so let me just enter the password for the user. And here we are. This is my Ubuntu OS, right? So even this is being hosted on the same VirtualBox. So I am kind of running two different virtual machines at the same time. Okay, so we have options to browse the internet and again open the terminal here. The terminal option is right here in my Ubuntu operating system. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the Ubuntu operating system. So let me just quickly turn it off and go back to my CentOS and start running a couple of commands. Okay. So I was showing you the CentOS, right? So login. Okay. So this is my terminal, and first of all, the main difference that you people need to understand between Windows and Linux is that in Windows it was the storing files or folders, it was all in drives. Okay, so we had a C drive, we had a D drive, we had many more drives like that, and we could store our documents all in those folders. Okay, but in Linux it's a little different from how Windows works. In Linux we have something called as the root directory. Okay, so we have file system here, right? So basically whatever folders or documents or directories you have, everything can be accessed from the file system. When I clicked on file system, then you would have noticed that I got a forward slash here. Okay, so this forward slash basically means root. Okay, this means I'm in the root directory, and in the root directory every document and every folder is present in this root directory. Okay, now whether it is me storing some kind of important files or MP3s or videos, then everything can be accessed from the root. So you can think of this something like a tree hierarchical structure. Okay, so you have one root and all the other branches and all the leaves and all those things, you can consider them to be the different directories and the files inside. So they can all be accessed from the root. And if you want me to show you where, 1 minute. Okay, so now this is your desktop, right? So you have the different icons here, and each of these icons are for different operation. So you have Edureka's home, and then you have a terminal, and you have an LMS. So this is a folder, and this is a document. Okay, so README is a document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to browse to the desktop folder. So from root directory, if you go to this folder called home, right? So under home directory, you have other option. You have Edureka and Uzi. Okay, so now if I go to the Edureka directory, then you have other options of desktop, documents, downloads, music, and all these things. So if I go to desktop, then in this directory, you have the files and the different things that are present on my desktop. So LMS was a folder that was present, README, this was a file that was present, the terminal was present on my desktop, so that is available here. So Eclipse IDE is present here. So all this was present on my desktop. So I get the same thing accessed from here. And similarly, if you're downloading something from the internet, then that will get downloaded to this folder, the downloads folder, right? So you have a documents folder. Similarly, you have a videos folder, music folder. So all these files or folders will be stored in some place, right? So they will be stored in your /home/Edureka okay, if you're downloading them. And if not, if it's going to be softwares which you're going to install, then you can install them in any other directory here. In fact, most of the softwares that you install, they'll be by default, they'll get installed in this directory, in the bin directory, right? So you have the bin directory, you have the lib directory, which will have a list of all the different libraries that the OS would use, and then you have the sbin. You have all these things, right? So they can all be accessed from here. And that's about accessing them from the GUI aspect. Okay, and the same thing can be done through the terminal. Okay, now let me go to my terminal and show you how that is done. So this is my terminal. Okay, this is the command line interface where I can put in my commands, and when those commands are executed by the kernel or by the shell, then program will get activated and some kind of features will run. All right. Okay guys, so before I get started, let me go back to my slides and show you what are the different basic commands that I want to run first of all. Okay, so as you can see, it says Linux provides a CLI to communicate with the operating system, right? So that was a terminal that I showed you. The CLI is called the terminal, and the CLI is basically, it's better for tasks which cannot be performed with the GUI. You know, I showed you the concept of going to different directories and different folders, right? So it was a little tough. I had to go through multiple directories. So through the GUI, that's one kind of drawback. You'll have to spend a lot of time navigating. But with the CLI, it's easier. It's just one command and you can access the directory that you want to. That's the advantage with the CLI. Okay, and this is just one basic example that I'm giving you. There are many more advanced concepts and topics which is not very easy to perform with the help of a GUI. So in those places, you can just use the CLI to perform those tasks. And the CLI is also much faster in quite a few ways. Okay, so that's the advantage with the CLI. And running the commands, basically the first and foremost, you have the PWD. Okay, now this stands for print working directory. Okay, and what it does is it displays the current working directory of the terminal. Okay, and then there's this / and I told you that the / represents the root directory. Okay, now let me go to the terminal and show you these two things. So right now we are in the home directory. Okay, now let me just type it down. Let me just put pwd, and when I put pwd, it prints the current working directory. Okay, the presently working directory. So that is home/edureka. Now if I go to the computer and file system and home, and inside this edureka, then what you see here, right? So this is the folder that I'm accessing through my terminal, because the present working directory is set to this folder. Okay, now if I want to say I want to change the directory, it means I want to change from this particular folder to a different folder. So there are other options like desktop folder and documents folder, right? If I want to move to one of these folders, then how will I do it using the terminal? So I'm just going to show you how that is done. I just want to minimize this a little bit. Yeah, the command for that is cd space the name of the folder. Supposing I want to go to the desktop folder, then I can just put DSKTOP. All right, and when I put enter, then I'm inside this folder. So earlier you saw this option, right? So this represents the directory I'm in. Okay, I was in fact in the home directory, and right now I'm in the desktop directory. So desktop is the directory inside home. And if I want to list down the contents in the desktop, then I can run the ls command. Okay, so when I put ls, it basically lists down the different folders and the different files that are present in that directory. Okay, so we have the Eclipse, we have LMS, which is a folder, we have README, which is another file. We have all these things. Okay, so let me just go to the desktop folder and show you the same. Okay, we have the terminal, we have the LMS, which is a folder. And similarly, going back to the terminal, if I want to enter this Linux folder, then I can again just say cd and space LMS. Okay, when I do this, I'm inside this folder. Okay, now if I put ls, then I have the list of the folders or documents that are present in this LMS folder. Okay, so ls is basically the command to list down the folders or files in that directory. And yeah, cd space the file name or the directory name would move you to that particular directory. Now that is the same thing that I have discussed in this slide here also. Okay, so I spoke about the present working directory, which displays the current directory that your terminal is in. And then you have the root directory, from where all your directories or folders are marked, right? So everything can be accessed from the root directory. So that is this. And then you have something called as the echo command. You have the su and the sudo commands. Okay, these are something a little advanced. So before I show this, let me show you the clear command. Let me explain the clear command. Okay, now getting back to my terminal, when I type clear, the whole CLI is cleared, right? My terminal is cleared. So whatever commands I ran previously, those are not present anymore. But what happens is those commands, they don't get deleted or something. They are just scrolled down. So as you can see, they are still present here. So when I scroll down, what happens is, it just makes sure that the other documents or the other commands that I specified earlier, those are all hidden, and I'm showed something new. So that's what happens here. Okay. So that is this. Now I told you that by giving cd you can go to the directory or the folder that's in the present working directory, right? But how about going back to the previous directory? So basically from Edureka folder to go to desktop, we clicked on this and then we entered this folder, right? So from this directory, by clicking on LMS, you go to a different directory, right? So you go in here. But using the GUI, you can just click on the cross mark here and you can exit that directory. But how about you doing that with the help of the terminal? How will you do it here? So to do that, we have the option called cd space 2 period marks or full stop. So that's what we call it, right? Dot. So if you have 2 dots after cd, this means you want to navigate to the previous directory. So we are currently in the LMS, and when I give enter, I'm back to the desktop folder, right? The desktop directory. Now again, if I give the same command again, then from desktop, I need to go back to this Edureka directory, correct? So there we go. Tilde symbol here, it represents that we are in the home directory, okay? So the home directory is basically, I can also access the home directory by just giving cd and enter, okay? That I can do it from any other directory. So let's say I am just doing an ls and I'm changing directory to downloads, okay? DOWNLOADS, okay? So just you gotta remember to give the exact name of the folder or the directory that you want to travel to. So only then it'll work. Otherwise, if you just give DOW, it won't really work. Okay, so after this, if you give enter, then you go to the downloads folder. And do we have anything inside downloads? No, we don't have any other folder or directory under downloads. So now let's try going to the home directory from here straight away. Okay. So I initially told you that by having 2 period marks after cd, you go to the previous directory in that path, right? So instead of that, if I just give cd, okay, and if I give enter, then I'll straight away go to the home directory. And this is with respect to any directory, no matter in which directory I am in. So if I just give cd, then it will go to the home directory. Okay, so that's what the benefit with the cd command is. You can give cd to move to any directory. Okay, so I have a question here from Shashikant, and Shashikant is asking me, should we have to do cd and ls every time? It seems a little complicated. So Shashikant, you don't need to really do that, because I was just about to get to that point. Okay, if you want to go to a different directory or a different folder, you don't need to give cd and ls every time. Okay, so ls is basically only for you to figure out or understand what are the different directories inside a particular directory. Okay, so if I know the path, then I can just feed it right away in one command and enter that directory. Now let's say I am currently in the cd directory. So this is cd, so this is my home directory. Okay, now if I click on desktop and if I click on LMS, and then you have another folder here. Okay, you have HBase. Okay, now supposing I want to go to any of these directories from my terminal, then I don't have to put cd 3 different times and followed by ls and then go to those directories. I can just specify this thing in just one command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say cd space, or since right now we are in the home directory, I need to give desktop. Okay. Now, one more thing which I want to show you people is there is this option of tab on your keyboard, right? When you give tab, then the command here will be autofilled, right? The option will be autofilled. So let me explain that again. So I'm just going to go back. So in the home directory, right? So you have different options. You have desktop and documents. So what I'm going to show you is by clicking on cd and space, and then if I just type 3 or 4 characters of desk, okay? I want to go to this directory, but I've just typed desk. Okay, now if I click on tab, then the remaining characters of that particular option is already filled. Okay, it gets autofilled. So that is what the tab would do. By clicking on tab, it will get autofilled. So similarly, under desktop, you have the option of LMS, right? So I'll just put L, and if I press tab, the remaining will get autofilled, correct? And inside LMS, you have different directories. We saw that we have HBase, we have Hive, and all these things. So let me go there and show you what are the different directories that are there. So we have HBase, Hive, MapReduce, and Oozie. Okay. Now let's go to the terminal again. Supposing I want to go to Oozie directory. Okay. Now when I just click on capital O, and if I click on tab, then it kind of auto fills the directory. Okay. But in case, let's take the example of Hive or HBase over here. Okay. Now since both start with H, I'm gonna type H, and if I click on tab, that doesn't work. Okay, it gives me further options of HBase and Hive. So that is because there are more than one options for starting with H, right? There are more than one folders or directories that start with H. So that's why you're getting further options. That's why it's not autofilling. But if you see, the second character here is B, and the second character here is I. So if you either give B, and now if you press tab, then HBase is what is going to be picked up. Okay, because after H and B, there's only the only option is of HBase. There's no other folder that has HB as the first letters of the name. So similarly, if I just type IV and if I do tab, then Hive gets autofilled. So things like that. So since our mission was to go to the HBase directory, I'm just gonna say HBase. Okay. Now inside HBase, I wanted to go to one of the directories in here. So let's say we go to advanced HBase practicals. Okay. Now for that, if you want to go there, then you just got to give this. Okay. So this is your complete path to access that particular folder. And when I give enter, then I am in the advanced HBase practicals module 9. Okay. So I'm in this particular folder or this particular directory. So that is what you can do with the help of feeding a path after CD. So Shashikant, this was your doubt, right? So is it cleared? Okay. So Shashikant says yes. All right. So see, this was the issue that you had, right? You had concerns that you had to put in commands multiple times. Multiple times you had to put CD and LS. So that's not needed, right? So you can just feed the path. If you know it, you can just feed the path in just one command and you can execute that. So similar to this, you have softwares and other other things which can be installed, other programs. So they can be executed and run with just one single command, and it eliminates a lot of confusion. So GUI is a little complicated in that way, right? It takes a lot of time and a lot of security and permission is needed, but with the help of the CLI and the terminal, then this job is simpler. Okay. So now if I want to go back to my home directory, I'm just going to click on CD and put enter. Okay. So that is this. Now let me go back to my slides. I'm just going to close all these folders. Okay. Now going back to my slides, I showed you the print working directory command, and I showed you the root directory, and I showed you the clear. Okay. So the echo and the sudo commands is something that I did not show you, but I also spoke about the ls and the cd commands, right? So what I'm going to do is before I go into details of cd and ls, right, I'm going to just show you the echo command and the sudo user. Okay. Now going back to my terminal, the echo command, right? So what is the echo command? So what is the echo command? Echo command is something that writes its arguments to standard output. So when we say arguments, it means whatever we type after echo, we'll type echo space and followed by that whatever we write. So that will be specified to standard output. And when we say standard output, it is the output that will be displayed by the CLI. So in your terminal, whatever output you get, so you'll get specified to that particular standard output. Okay, now let me show you a practical example. Only then you will be able to understand that. So let's just clear the screen. So another shortcut to clear the screen is Control L. Okay. If not, you can just give the clear command like this. Okay, this will clear your screen. Otherwise, you can just give Control plus L, which will again just clear the screen. It's a keyboard shortcut. Okay. So I told you that I was talking about the echo command. So when I say echo and if I give enter, then there is nothing that is displayed. But if I say echo and say hi, see what the output came. So when we executed this command, this was the output that came back. It says hi. And if I say echo hi, my name is Vardhan. When I say this, then whatever was specified as arguments, right? So this was basically specified as arguments to this command. So the argument is specified as the output. This is the takeaway from the definition. So the definition was basically that whatever the argument is, that is specified to standard output. So that's what it happens. So that's what comes here. So this is one thing. And in fact, there's another functionality also. Now, you are all aware of the concept of variables, right? So we can assign some kind of value to a variable, and we can also print that with the help of the echo command. Now, let's say that we have a variable x, okay, and let's give it a value 100. Okay. So now if I just say echo $x, then the value that is stored in this variable, right, that will be printed. Because echo is something that's just gonna print the argument to standard output. Okay, it will display the value that is present over here. So if it's just a string, then that will be printed, and if it's a variable that I'm specifying, then even that will be printed. So the difference between the variable and string is this dollar. Okay, Now if I just give echo $x, then I've set the 100 value to X, right? So that 100 will be printed here. So like I told you, 100 is printed. But the same thing, if I give echo X without the dollar, then see what's printed. It is X which is printed. So that is the difference between the string and a variable. Okay, so you can have again a variable called name, or you can have a variable called Vardhan, and you can store the value of 10. Okay, but if you want the value to be displayed, then you gotta append dollar before the variable name. Okay, so that is about the echo command. And in fact, there are a lot of advantages with this command, and I will talk about the other features and the other places where this is used later during the session. But till then, this kind of an introduction is enough for now. Okay, so going back to the slides, what else do I have? Okay, so we have the su command, correct? So as it says, su, it is used to switch to the root user. Okay, so that super user permissions can be used to execute commands. All right. And then you have su username used to switch to a different user. And then you have sudo command, which executes only that particular command with the root or super user privileges. Now these three, what they essentially mean is that you get more permissions. So if I go back to my terminal, so if you guys remember, then I logged into CentOS with the Edureka user, right? So that is displayed here also. So it says Edureka at localhost, right? So this is the username of this account. And similarly, you have something called as the root user. Okay, this is my user, and then you have the root user. And what the root user is the root user gives you a lot of permission. So that's like the ultimate super user of this particular system. So basically, if there is any folder that cannot be accessed by my user, okay, my username is Edureka, and if I do not have the permissions to access that particular directory or that particular folder, then we can use the root user, because root has the ultimate privileges. So any command that is executed with the root user, then that will be executed. Okay, so because root has all the privileges, it has all the permissions. So that's what the root user is. And there are certain functionalities which need the su user or the root user's permission, and I will show you all those things later. But for now, what you need to understand is by just giving su, then you can switch to the root user. Okay, and it asks for the password, of course. You got to know what is the password for your root user, and when you give the password, you will be logged in as a root user. So you're not Edureka anymore. Okay, and as you can see here, you are root@localhost. So this is the host name, and this is my username. Okay, root. So earlier you might have noticed that there was a dollar symbol. Okay, but now it is hash. So this basically this hashtag represents that we are inside the root user and we are accessing the executing commands as a root user. So that's what it means. And if you want to get out or exit the root user, then you can just type exit and give enter. So now you're back as yourself. Now you're going to be executing commands as Edureka user. Okay. And another thing that you can do is if you have multiple users, okay, and if you want to switch to one of the other users, then you can also give the su command and go to switch to the user. Supposing the username is let's say ABC is the username, then I can just give su space ABC. Okay. Now since I don't have any a user account called ABC, it will probably throw me an error or tell me that it does not exist. Okay, but the point that you need to note is that if you have any user, then you can just switch to that user from the terminal by using the su command. Okay, su space the name of the user account. So again, later during the session, there's a topic about creating and deleting users. So at that time, I will show you how you can switch to another user from the terminal. Okay. So let's park it for later, because it's a little complicated if I tell you that right now. So I think I've covered pretty much everything about su. And there's one other command called sudo. Okay. So sudo basically lets you execute a particular command as a root user. So when I give sudo and ls, then what happens is this particular command, ls command, which will list down all the other directories or folders in the current working directory, right? So this will be executed as a root user. Okay. So similarly, so earlier I executed the su command and I gave a password for that. The difference between the two is that with the help of sudo, then only that particular command will be executed as a root user. But whereas with su, then the entire set of commands after that will be executed as the root user, as you will be logged in as a root user itself. So let me just show it to you again. So this was the ls command, which I executed as a sudo user. Okay, as a sudo user or as a root user. But if I just give su and if I give the password, then I enter and I can enter the same details. Okay, I can put the same command ls as a root user. So basically the kind of results I get will be the same, okay, but it's just the difference is that the user that will be executing that particular command. So I hope this clears your doubt, okay. So I'm just gonna say exit and clear the screen, and if I go back to my slides, I'll just read out the definition. So sudo basically executes only that particular command with the root or the super user privileges, okay. And when you give sudo username, you can switch to a different user, and when you give su, you can switch to the root user. So that's what I showed you, the differences between the three. You first give su, and then it'll ask you for the password. You specify the password, and then you'll be logged in as a root user, and then you can execute your commands. You can execute any number of commands you want to, and then you can exit that particular root access and then come out of it. And if you want to execute another command with the root permission, okay, and if it's just one command which you want to execute, then you can just give sudo, and then you can put your command there, right? So I will talk about these things later. But for now, what you need to understand is the basics, and these are the basics, okay? The pwd, the echo, the su commands, because all these things come in handy when you go to the advanced concepts. So going on to the next slide, we have the ls commands here, okay? I showed you one command, that is what happens when you just put the ls command. So now there are different options that you can use along with the ls, right? So basically ls stands for listing all the contents in the current working directory, okay. And if I go back to my slides, right now we are in the home directory, and if I give ls here, it will list down all the directories that are present in my home directory, okay. So let me just clear the screen and execute that again, ls. So right now we have desktop, downloads, and music. So these three are some folders. We have documents, which is another folder. All these things are folders, and these are documents, okay, documents and files. So these are the directories or folders. These are the documents or files. So this is what you get when you execute the ls command. Now if you go to the slides, then you will notice that you have certain options that you can type along with the ls. So when you say ls path, then you can probably list down the list of contents that is there in that particular path, okay. Let me go back to the terminal. If I say ls, and if I say the path where I want to list down the contents, okay, right now I might be in the home directory, okay, but what if I want to list down the contents that are present in the desktop directory? Then at that time I can use ls path. So what I'll do is I can just put desktop, okay, and inside desktop there are many other folders. If you remember, there was one folder called lms. So if I put lms, okay, this is the path, right? So I have given ls followed by the path desktop/lms. Now if I give enter, then the folders or the directories that will be present in this particular directory or this folder will be displayed to me. That is HBase, Hive, MapReduce, Oozie, and Ping. So that is what ls and path does. Now if you go to the slides, there are other options, right? So these options, they can be also referred to as flags. So there is a hyphen followed by one letter character, okay. There's one character here, that is L. There is a character called A. There's another set of characters here, author. So all these are called options, or they're also called as flags. We refer to them as L flag or A flag or author flag, all these things, okay. Now if you give the L flag, what happens is it lists down all the contents similar to just giving ls, but along with its owner settings, its permissions, and the timestamp. So when we say owner settings, permissions, and timestamp, it is with respect to the particular folder inside that directory. So let me show you an example of that. So by giving ls, you have all the different folders that are present in this root directory, okay. Now if I give ls-l, so the same directories or same documents are listed down here, but we have additional options here, right? So we have additional information. So these are the set of permissions that a particular user has. We have we have username, and we have the host name, we have the memory size, we have the date, the timestamp, and all these things followed by the name of the file. So if you see desktop is something it was created on this day, and this is the size of it, and all these things, okay. So this is called the long format. I will explain each of these permissions and what each of these stands for, what one stands for, what is Edureka here, and what is Edureka here. I'll explain the all these things in some more time, because before I explain those things, there are other commands which I want to show with respect to ls, right? So in ls, other than ls-l, you have ls-a, you have ls author, okay. So let's see what happens when we give the a flag. It should ideally show you the list of all the hidden contents in the specified directory, okay. And then if it's if you're using the author flag, then it will list down all the contents in that directory along with its owner, correct? So let's try executing ls hyphen a first. So when we give a, all the hidden directories also should be displayed. So as you can see, these were the other folders which were not visible when I gave just ls, because ls just shows the list of contents that are available in the GUI, right? So in the GUI, if you go to Eureka and if you go to desktop, from the GUI aspect, you only get to see these. Okay, so these are the regular files which are not hidden. But of course, there are going to be many hidden, and those can be accessed by the terminal by giving the ls minus a command. Okay, so that is what this helped in doing. Now, if I give ls and if I use the author flag now, see what happens. You have the author also. So instead of having the username and the host name, here you have the author of that particular document. So if this is the particular folder or file or a document, then who is the author for that? It is Edureka, because I'm the user, right? So the author name will be present over here, followed by the size and the timestamp it was created and all these things. And we get the list of contents for all the directories or folders which are present in that particular directory. So that's what ls does. Okay, so guys, that was about the author flag. And in case we want to use a combination of these flags, then even that is possible. So I showed you earlier that there is this ls minus l flag, and then there is the ls minus a flag, right? So minus a displays all the hidden contents in that directory. So let me use a combination of them. So let me say ls hyphen l and a. Since there are two flags which I want to use, then I'm just going to use one hyphen symbol for two different flags. So when I do this, then all the hidden contents will also be displayed along with their extended long format. Okay, so those are the different folders or directories which are present in this home directory of mine. Okay, so that is the combination of ls minus l and ls hyphen a. So we saw a combination. And again, so similarly, if I instead of those flags, if I use the hyphen s flag, then it will sort that entire list by the size. Okay, and let me show you an example of that. So we used ls minus l, right? Now if I use s over here, it will sort this entire list of directories with the size. The folder with the largest size will be on top, and the one with the smallest size will be at the bottom. So as you can see here, it was all jumbled. It was this is basically the size block, right? So this is basically for the size block. Here, if you see, the previous time when I just ran ls hyphen la, then it was in a different order. But since I ran ls hyphen la and capital S, this has sorted the result in as per the size of the blocks of the folders. The folder with the highest size is displayed first, and the one with the lowest is displayed last. So that is about the ls hyphen s. So there is one more command that I want to show you, which can be executed with the help of the ls command. Okay, we executed the ls hyphen l, a, and s flags, right? So we executed this one previously. Now, what if you want to store these details? So whatever the output here was, if you want to store it into another file, how will you do that? We have an option for that. Okay, and that is this symbol, greater than symbol. Okay, it's called the direction flag, input output direction flag. And by using this flag, whatever the result or the output of the command that comes, right, prior to this symbol, those will be stored in the file that precedes this symbol. So let's say that, you know, I want to create a new file. I'm going to create that. Okay, I'm currently in the home directory, right? So let's not execute it here. What I'm going to say is, let me first change directory to documents. Okay. Now in here, of course, I don't think there are any hidden documents either. So there are no folders here. So what I'm going to do is ls minus las. Okay. And I'm going to run the this command at the home/edureka directory. Okay, I'm going to basically run the same las. So basically the same results, I will run them by specifying this directory, and I will be storing this file inside my new file. Okay, now let me name that file file1.txt. Okay, now the reason I moved to this directory is because I can store the file in this directory. Okay, had I not moved to this directory and had I just executed this ls minus las followed by this direction, then what would have happened is it would have just created this new file in my the home directory itself. Okay, so if I give an enter here, there's a new file that would have been created under my documents directory. Okay, now when I ran ls inside documents, there was no folder, but now let's run ls. So now you can see that there's a new file that's created, and that is called file1.txt. Now that is because I used this direction symbol, nothing but the greater than symbol. And when I do this, whatever result that gets generated from this command, right, from these options on these flags, those will be stored in a new file, and the file name needs to be specified over here. Okay, so that was a wrong command that I used. It's not ls. So what I need to do is, let me just view that file. Okay, so to view this particular file or any file, we have to use the vi editor, or we have to use a gedit editor, or we can use the cat command. Okay, now the most common one is the vi editor. So let's just execute the vi and open this file from here. Okay, and the reason that this ls.file did not execute was because it lists down the files, right? And this is a wrong usage. I did a mistake by specifying ls and by not giving a directory. So I should have used vi instead. So that's why that did not come. But anyways, if I give vi and file name, then that file opens, right? So the file which I created, and this file has the output that was displayed earlier. Okay, so basically whatever was generated by the ls and a flags of ls, so that result, instead of coming in the terminal, it got stored in a different file. Okay, now let's just exit this vi file and explain the same thing. So what you saw inside this file, file1.txt, the content is the same as this one. Okay, so we ran the same command, ls-las, but just that instead of getting the output in the terminal, we gave a direction command over here to save it in a different file, and we stored this file in the home/edureka directory. Okay, now supposing if I want to store this file in the same directory, then even that can be done. Okay, it's not a big deal. So this is the command, right? So if I remove the path over here, then what happens is, whatever the output gets generated from this option and this command, that will be stored in the file1.txt inside my home directory. Okay, if I'm inside the documents directory, right? So let me just go back one path. So right now I am inside the home directory, right? So here if I execute that command, okay, then a new file will be created with the name file1.txt, and it will have the same details. So I've done that, and let's see what are the contents of that file. Okay, so it's nice, right? So you can in this way, whatever output that you have, that you can directly store it into another file. So it's a very handy command and a very handy option, and I'll talk about more such advantages like this later. Okay, so for now I just wanted to show you how the direction works. So getting back to my slides, I think I've shown you how to work with the ls command, and in the previous slide I showed you the basic commands with respect to present working directory and clear directory and the sudo and the echo commands. So I've done with ls also, and now I'm going to show you how to work with the cd directory. So some of the cd directories I showed you earlier also. I showed you how to switch to a new directory. So when you type cd, it will just change the directory to the home directory. Okay, so the /home/edureka, okay, no, that is my home directory. My home directory is set to that path. So if I give cd, it will go to that particular home directory. And similarly, if I give even cd and space tilde symbol, as you can see here, then even this command will change the directory to the home directory. Okay, but however, if you give cd space just slash, this will change it to the root directory. So it changes the current directory to the root directory. That is because the / here, it represents the root. I told you this a number of times earlier. Okay, and if there's any other path or any other folder which you want to move to, then you start from the root. So you specify the absolute address, right? You start from the root, you say slash, and then you put the folder name. You again say slash, and then you put the next folder name. So it is similar to that. The first / represents the root directory, and the subsequent slashes are to differentiate between the different parent and the subdirectories. So that's what they are. So this will change you to the root directory, and then you have the cd hyphen double period mark. Okay, 2 period symbols. And when you give cd space dot, right, if you give 2 dots, cd space dot dot, then it will change to parent directory. So supposing I'm inside the desktop directory. So desktop's parent is home directory, right? So it will change me to the home directory. But supposing if I was inside, let's say the if I'm inside a directory called directory C, and if C's parent was B, Then by running cd space dot dot from the C directory, then it will switch me to the parent directory, which is B. So that's what this does. And then we have one more command here, that is cd within single quotation marks we have some kind of path. Now this is useful at times when your folder name or your directory name has 2 words. Okay, so if you have 2 words, then if you have a space in between, then the space will be considered as an argument. Okay, so terminal will consider that as an argument. So if you want to switch to a document in that kind of a situation, you know, or if you want to switch to a directory which has a space, or a document which has a space in the middle, so in that kind of situation you can use a single quotation mark or double quotation mark. Okay, so it's you know, you also have the comfort to switch to double quotation marks. So I'll execute all these things and show you. Okay, so first I'll show you the cd tilde, then with the forward slash, then with the dot mark. This of course I showed you earlier also, and then I'll show you how to switch to another folder with, you know, which is having 2 different names with a space in the middle. So going back to my root, so right now we are inside the home directory itself. So if I give cd hyphen desktop, okay, now in here we have my other directories, and if I do cd and lms, I'm inside the lms directory. Okay, now from here, if I give cd and if I use the tilde option, right, then it will switch me to the root directory. So see, this was the tilde symbol earlier. Okay, so this tilde symbol represents root, and since I said change directory to tilde symbol, this which implies root, it basically decodes it as change directory to the root directory. So when I did that, I have automatically switched to root directory, while earlier it was lms. So similarly, if you're in the lms directory and if you also just press cd, right, if you just give this command, even this will switch you to the root directory. So basically cd and cd space tilde, they are both the same. But however, if you give cd with forward slash, then it will switch you to the root directory. So when I give enter, as you can see, I'm in the root directory. So if I give ls over here, I have a list of other directories which I showed you earlier. So in your file system, right? So yeah, so inside your file system, if you open this folder, then you have the root directory. So inside this directory, you have home and Edureka, and this is where desktop and documents are all present as a subdirectory of this parent directory. Okay, so this is the root directory where everything is stored. So any document or any folder in your Linux operating system, they can be referred or they can be accessed from this root directory. Okay, now going back to the terminal, let me show you an example of that. I've already moved to the root directory. Now let me say cd bin, and okay, we have this. So now when I gave cd space bin, then it moved me to the bin folder inside my root directory. So I ran the root directory, I did an ls which listed down the list of folders inside my root directory. These were the options, bin, boot, dev, these are all the different folders. And when I said change directory to bin, it shifted me, or it moved me to this particular folder, okay, inside the root directory. So right now I am in the bin directory, and inside the bin directory I ran the ls command, which basically means listing down all the contents, whether it's documents or whether it's folders or directories, all those will be listed down. Okay, so these are the list of all those contents in the bin directory. Okay, now that we are in bin, let me go back to my root directory by giving double dot. Okay, so from bin, it again I go back to my root directory. Okay, so this forward slash represents root directory like I told you earlier, and if I do ls, then I'm back to this directory where we have bin, boot, dev, and etc home and all these things. So now what I'm going to do is, so now that I'm in the root directory, now let me say change directory to home, and inside home there is Edureka. I want to go to Edureka. Inside Edureka, let's go to desktop, and then there is lms. Okay, and in here, if I do ls, then these are the list of folders here. Okay, now I'm going to change directory to hbase, and if I do an ls over here, then you can see that there is one particular folder called advanced hbase practicals module 9. Okay, if I now just say cd and if I put adv space hbase, then I will not be able to autofill the option. Okay, that's because the terminal or the CLI is not able to recognize this particular command because there's a space over here. Okay, so it treats ADV as a separate folder, but since it's not able to find any folder here as ADV, that is the problem. Okay, let me show you via the GUI what it looks like. So we are in the desktop, and inside LMS we have HBase. Inside HBase we have advanced HBase practical. So this was what I was talking about, this particular folder, correct? So let me minimize this for you. Okay, now this is a classic situation of when you need to use the double quotation mark or single quotation mark. Okay, now if I just put the same name, like say ADV and HBase, then it kind of autofills automatically, right? So even the quotation mark ends over here, so that indicates that this is another folder that's present. So if I just put enter, then it will change my directory to this particular folder. So that is what the quotation mark does. So when I do enter, then I'm inside this folder. When I do ls, I have the list of folders and directories inside this advanced HBase practicals folder. Alright guys, so I'm just going to do a cd to my home directory, and I'm here. And that was about the different cd commands that are available, which I wanted to show you. Okay, so let me just go back to my slides now and go to the next slide. I showed you all the different commands here. Okay, so the next set of commands that I'm going to talk about are those of cat, grep, sort, and pipe commands. Okay, so let's first go to the next slide and start off with cat command. Okay, so when would we use the cat command, guys? So it's pretty obvious, right? From what it's written here, it says when you're working with files, that time you can use the cat command. So the cat command, it is basically used to display the content of the text files and concatenate several files into one. So what this means is, if I have a particular I have a text file. So earlier we created one text file having all the file permissions, right? So if I have that kind of a text file, and if I want to display the content of that text file, then I can use the cat command. I can say cat, and if I give the file name, then that content will be displayed. So when I use only the cat command with one file name, it's very similar to how the vi command works, or how the nano command works, right? So it will display the content in the terminal itself, correct? But the difference with cat command is that with cat, I can list down the contents of multiple files. So it's not just one. Okay, I can even display, I can specify 3 different file names, and if I put enter, then the content of all the 3 files will be displayed in my terminal. The same thing won't happen with vi. So if I say vi, then only that particular file's content will be displayed. So same thing with nano, right? So let me just go to the terminal and show you an example of the cat command. So right now we are in the cd directory. Let me just maximize this. Okay, I'm going to clear the screen. Present working directory is the home/Edureka directory. This is the home directory, and from here let me go to documents. Okay, if I do an ls, there is this file1.txt which I created earlier, correct? So this was where the different file permissions were present, right? So if I do cat hyphen file name, and if I give enter, then I get the list of the contents of that particular file. So in that file, there are only these 3 rows, because this was the latest updated permissions that I specified in the file1.txt. Okay, so guys, I earlier told you that you can enter details to a file by using the direction command, right? So that was the greater than symbol. So I'm going to use that kind of a symbol over here, and I'll create a new file by adding details by using that command. Okay, so initially it was I used the ls-l, but this time I'll use the cat command itself, and say I'm going to give the direction symbol here, and when I'm done with that, let me give the name of the new file. Let's say file2.txt. Now when I hit enter, the command is not executed completely. Okay, so I'm inside this place where I can enter the text. So it's basically going to create a new file. Okay, now whatever text I enter here, that will be stored inside this file. So let's say, hi, my name is Vardhan. And if I give enter, I can go to the next line, and here let's say, welcome to Linux tutorial by Edureka. Okay, now if I want to just add these 2 lines to this particular file called file2.txt, then I can press Ctrl D now. Okay, by pressing Ctrl D, I come back to my command line. So what this command basically does is, this cat command would have created a new file, file2.txt, and the text that we entered below it, right? This will be entered inside this text. So if I do cat file2.txt, then whatever I typed earlier, that got saved in this file. Now similarly, if you see the file1.txt, the contents are these. Okay, so this is the contents of this one, and this is the content of this file. Now I told you that with the help of cat command you can display the content of two different files. So let me show you that option. Okay, I'm going to say file1.txt and then I'm going to say file2.txt. So in this way I'm going to basically display two files, cat. I'm going to display file1 and file2. When I give enter, first the file2 contents will be displayed, and then the file2 contents or the lines in file2.txt will be displayed, right? So first these were the permissions that were there in the first file, and then this was what was there in the second file. All right, guys. Now this brings us to another important concept of how to append files. So CAT basically stands for concatenate, right? So that's the most important option. So if you want to concatenate a particular file with some kind of lines, then I showed you how that is done by creating a new file. What I did was I created a new file, file2.txt, and I concatenated these lines into this particular file. So if I just give cat and if I give file1.txt and if I give double marks, okay, so double direction marks, which is nothing but the greater than symbol, okay, we also call it direction marks. So if you give file1.txt and followed by this if you give file2.txt, then what's going to happen is whatever contents are there in file1, those will get appended or concatenated to this file2.txt. Okay, so in my file2.txt we have these two lines. Okay, hi, my name is Vardhan and welcome to Linux tutorial by Edureka. And file1 has these three lines. So basically when I enter now, there will be a file2 in which there will be extra lines. Okay, so let me do a cat file2.txt. So as you can see, initially when I ran my cat file2.txt over here, I had only these two lines, right? But now after using the bidirectional symbol, okay, the direction symbol, what has happened is I have three extra lines. So it says, hi, my name is Vardhan, welcome to Linux tutorial by Edureka. After that, I have the permissions, which was present in the previous file. Okay, so that's what happens here. Okay, in fact, it's actually four other lines. Thanks for pointing that out, Hemant. So Hemant, who's another person in our section, he said that there are 4 lines in the file1.txt. Actually, he's correct. So total 8. So this is the first line, and these are the other 3 lines. So you can also see that from here. Okay. So the first time when I ran cat file1.txt, right, I first got total 8. This was the first line, and after that I got the permissions. Okay, so this is the first line, and then you have the list of the other contents. So when we ran the ls-l, the total number of entries were 8. So that was what this total 8 stands for. So these are the 4 lines that got appended to my file2.txt. Okay, but however, there wouldn't be any changes to my file1.txt because I didn't make any changes there. So let me anyway show you that also. If you see here again, the contents here are the same. It's only that the file2 has got these 4 lines extra. So that is what the direction symbol does. So these are the advantages with the cat command. All right. So what I'm going to do now is let me go back to my slides and show you some more options. Okay, so we have flags, like we have the B flag, the N flag, S flag, and E flag. Let's see what each of those stand for. Okay, so when we use the B flag, it's going to add line numbers to the non-blank lines. Okay, so whichever line there is some text, so those lines are going to be numbered. Okay, and when you say -N, then it is used to add line numbers to all lines. It doesn't matter if it's blank lines or non-blank lines, it's just going to add numbers everywhere, line numbers. Okay, and when you give the S flag, it is basically to squeeze all the blank lines. Supposing you have 3 blank lines one after the other, then it will squeeze all those blank lines and it will reduce it. Okay, so that's what the S does. And then the E flag is going to show you a dollar at the end of each line. So let me go back to my terminal and show you this option. So first of all, let's see the cat file2.txt, and let me use the flag -N. So this will list the number of lines, right? So there are basically 4 lines from file1, and these were the 2 lines that were earlier present. So these are the 6 lines in total we have in this file2.txt. Okay, let me just clear the screen because it's a little tough to see everything, right? So yeah, so when I ran the -N command, the file2.txt, the lines in there were numbered, okay, 1 to 6. And then we have another flag called minus B flag, right? Minus B flag will add numbers to also the non-blank lines. So, but for that we need to first have blank lines over here. So what we'll do is I'm going to do a cat and do this and file 2.txt. So when I do this, I'll be adding lines to this file 2.txt. Okay, I'll be appending lines over here. So let me just give one blank line, enter some random text, and then enter blank line and then random text. Okay, so this is what I'm going to just enter or append to my file 2.txt. Okay, you press Ctrl D to exit this, and now these would have been saved to my file 2.txt. So let me just run the same command again. Oh, sorry, I should have ran this cat file 2.txt. Okay, when I do this, as you can see, it starts from here, and these were the other lines that were appended. Okay, and now if I use the cat hyphen B flag, okay, see what happens. Only the non-blank lines are numbered, right? So these lines are not numbered. But if I use the minus n, which I used earlier, what it would do is it will number each and every line. So that's the difference between minus b and the minus n flag. Okay, so n numbers all the lines irrespective of it being empty or not, but whereas minus b numbers only lines which are non-blank. Okay, so that is this one. And there is another flag which is the hyphen s flag. Okay, so it's not capital S, it is small s, right? So when I say minus s, then you get the list of the documents. So as you can see here, all the spaces are squeezed into one. Seems like there were no multiple spaces, right? No multiple blank lines. So what we'll do is let's edit the file 2.txt again. Okay, or in fact, let me open it via the editor, VI editor. Okay, so when I do this, these are the existing ones. So when you press insert, or when you press I button or insert button, you can start entering text details inside this file. Okay, now right now I'm here. Let me add multiple blank lines here. Okay, so as you can see, there are around 3 blank lines here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 blank lines, and here there are 3 blank lines. Okay, now let me press escape. Okay, now if I give escape, okay, so now we are in insert mode. So what I do is I'm going to press escape, and then followed by that, if you give colon and WQ, this would save this file. Okay, so I've made changes, right? I've added lines here, so it would save that changes, and it would quit the VI editor mode. So if I give enter, so I'm outside that file. So now if you see the cat file 2.txt, then it has additional lines, right? So now I'm going to run the command that I ran earlier, cat hyphen flag s and then file name. So when I do this, all the multiple blank lines are squeezed into one. So as you can see here, there have been multiple lines here when I ran the file 2.txt, but here when I ran the cat hyphen with the s flag, then there are all these multiple blank lines are squeezed into one. Okay, so that is the option with the cat command. Okay, so I think with that, I think I've covered all the different options. Okay, there is one left. There is the minus e option, right? So okay, now let me show you what that does. So when we use the capital E flag, okay, there is a $sign that is appended after every line. So the first line is total 8, or let's say the first line is this one. So there's a $sign here, and after this line there's a $sign. After this there's a $sign, and since these are blank lines, you'll only find the $sign here. And again, after this one you have a $sign, and blank lines have $signs, and yeah, so that's how the E flag works. Okay, so at the end of the line is appended with the $symbol. Okay, so with this I'm done with all the cat commands. So going back to my slides now, let's go to the next command, that is grep. Okay, so grep command, working with grep command. So what does the grep command do? You guys have any idea? Okay, well, I don't expect you people to, but yeah. So if any of you know, if you have an introduction to Linux, then you can answer it, but it's fine if you don't, because I'm going to explain that. It's my duty. And the grep command is basically used to search for a particular string or a word in a text file, right? We have a file document like the one which we created now. Like we have 2 documents, like file1.txt and file2.txt. And what if you want to search for a particular string, right, or a particular word? So in this case, it's pretty simple because you can easily find them. But what if you want to do it to a very big file document which has like millions of lines, right? So supposing you have any document, then you'll have multiple lines, right? And if you want to find one particular word, or if you want to go to one particular string, then how will you do it? So in Windows, you have the Control F option, right? But via a CLI, you can't use it, right? So via CLI, you use the grep command, okay? And the format for executing the command is this. So you specify grep, and then you specify the string that you want to search for. So options is the string that I've searched in this command, and then the file name, okay? And this will return the result of the matching string options. So similarly, if you use the I flag, then it will return the results for even case insensitive strings. So basically, if you do not use the I flag, then it's case sensitive, right? So it will only search for options with these letters. But if there is a word called options with a capital O, where the first letter is capitalized, then in that case, only when you use I will even that particular result be shown. Okay, so that is the advantage with the I flag. And then you have the N flag, which is the grep -n, which will again returns the matching strings along with their line number, in which line was that string or that word found. So that's what N does. And when you give -v flag, then what happens is you will not be shown the list of lines where the results were present, but instead you will be shown the list of lines where the results were not found, where there was no matching string, right? So those lines will be printed with the help of V flag. And then with the C flag, it returns the number of lines in which the results matched the search string. So supposing you have like 4 words, okay? You have a big document and your string matched 4 times. Then if you use the -C flag, then it will display the number 4 instead of displaying the search string. Okay, so let me go to the VM, let me go to my CentOS and show you how to execute these commands. Okay, so right now we are in the documents folder. If I want to execute that, then we need to edit this in a different way. Okay, we need to have a different text, and this directory has these documents, right? So let me just quickly go to the documents folder, and here if I do an ls, we have the 2 files which we created. We have file2.txt and file1.txt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what's there in file1.txt. okay, so let me edit this file, okay, or let's just create a new file. What do you say? We can create a new file by doing this, right? By giving the direction symbol followed by the name of the file. Let's say automobiles. This is the name of my file, automobiles.txt, and I can start listing down the automobiles that I want. So let's say car, or let's say motorbikes. Okay, we can say train. Well, train is technically not an automobile, but still. Or let's go into details of the companies. Okay, let's say Maruti, let's say Ferrari, Lamborghini. These are some of the most famous companies, right? So when it comes to bikes, you have Yamaha, then you have Honda, right? You have Suzuki, you have Aprilia, and to name a few more, we can add some more companies like BMW, we can add Audi, we can add Volkswagen to this list. Okay, now if I do Control D, then this will be the list of content in my automobiles.txt. Okay, I'm going to clear the screen now, and if I do cat command here, then it displays the list of contents here, right? Okay, now let's use the grep command to search the content that is present in this text. So I'm going to do a grep, and the string that I want to search for is let's say YAM, because in Lamborghini we have the search string YAM, and even in Yamaha we have the YAM, right? We are supposed to get 2 results for this. So in this case, so if I just say grep YAM, and if I specify the file name automobiles.txt, and if I give enter, then I get the 2 different words, right? The 2 names where this was present, where YAM was present. Okay, now if I use the same thing with the I flag, then it will display the list of files in a case insensitive fashion. But in my file, there's no uppercase file, I'm going to say C automobiles.txt. I'm going to append this word called Amber. Okay, so Amber is another automobile company, and when I do this, and if I run the cat command now, okay, you will see that along with these names which was there initially, there is Amber has been appended. Okay, and this time when I search for AM, right, so it should not show me this, because even though there is AM here, the A is capital here, but I'm searching for small a, so it should not show me this result. Okay, I should get the same result that I got previously. So if I do a grep AM, like earlier, I got the Lamborghini and Yamaha as the only options. Okay, but now if I append this with minus I or the I flag, so what happens is I'll get the option of even Amber along with this, because it would search for the string in a case insensitive fashion. Okay, so this time, as you can see, Amber is added to this list because it did not consider case insensitive letters. Okay, so that is about the I flag, and there is another N flag, right? So let's see what the N flag does. So every time you use the minus N flag, then it will list down the line in which the word was present. So that's what I mentioned earlier. So over here in line number 6 and line number 7, we have Lamborghini and Yamaha, right? So the line number is mentioned. Okay, now so that's what the N flag does. Okay, so we have the V flag and the C flag left. So let's execute them and see what happens. So when I remove N and when I execute V, as you can see, all the results except for Yamaha and for Lamborghini would be present here. Okay, but if I give minus IV, okay, which indicates IV flag, then even Amber would not be present in the output I will get now. Okay, when I give enter, as you can see, Amber is not present because Amber is part of the case insensitive option, right? When we included I, this should be chosen as a search result, and since it's considered as a search result, we will display only the result, the set of results which were not found. So the other lines in which text was not found were these, and that's why we got these options. Okay, now we have one more flag which we need to see, and that is the C flag. And when you enter the C flag, then it displays the list of the number of times that a string was found. So AM was found 2 times, once in Lamborghini and once in Yamaha. So that's why we got the answer as 2. Now, if I use C with the combination of I, all right, I'm going to get 3. That's because even Amber will be considered in this case. Okay, guys. So this is what is there with respect to the grep command. Okay, so guys, do you all have any doubts? Okay, and if you all do have any doubts, please put them in the chat box, because I'll be going to the next slide then. All right, and I don't think you'll should be having any, because I've explained each and every outcome, each and every flag that can be used with grep. Okay, so if you all do have any other confusion, please put them in the chat box. But in the meanwhile, let me get back to my presentation and continue with my next slide. Okay, so I spoke about the grep command. Okay, and now in the next slide, let me talk about the sort command. Okay, so we use the sort command to sort the results of a search either alphabetically or numerically. All right, and we can sort either files or file contents or directories. So what this means is whatever results you get, right, or I mean not just results, or even if it's the list of items that is present in a particular directory, even when you run an ls command, right, you'll have a list of files and the list of folders that are there in that particular directory. So we can sort even those things. Okay, now that result can be sorted, and also we can sort anything else. We can sort the contents of a file, right? We can sort the contents of the file, or all these things. So that's what this means. So without wasting much time, let me just show you how that is done. So you can give sort and the file that you want to search. Alternatively, you can also search 2 files at the same time by giving file1.txt and file2.txt. Okay. So and the syntax for that is sort and the file name. Okay. When you say sort on the file name, then the contents of this file will be returned in the alphabetical order. Okay. If you want to sort 2 files at the same time, then you can in arguments you can just give both the file names, and it will sort the contents for both file1.txt and file2.txt. Okay. And again, if you want to display them in the reverse order, then you can specify the R flag. And for case insensitive sorting, you can do the -f flag. And then if you want to sort the results based on the number in a numerical order, then you can use the N flag. Okay guys, so let me first of all go to my terminal and start executing them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear my screen, and currently let me just list down the contents of this directory. So we have automobiles file, we have file1, and we have file2. When I just give a sort and press enter, then I enter the interactive mode. Okay, so here I can type all this. I can type random words. Okay, I can say A B C D, or I can say B C D A, or I can say E D F G, all these things. Okay, and then when I press Control D, it gets me out of the interactive mode. And when I exit the interactive mode, the text that I typed in, right, the input, that has been sorted. So this up till this line was what I entered as input, if you remember, and up till EDFG, right? So basically this text has been ordered as per alphabetical order, and since A comes first in alphabetical chronology, this is first, the BCDA is second, and then you have the other lines. Okay, these have been sorted in an alphabetical order. Now if I give sort with the file name, okay, that is automobiles.txt, and if I give enter, then this particular file will be ordered in the alphabetical order. Okay, the contents will be listed down in an alphabetical order. Let me clear the screen and show that again. So let me first just do a cat and show you how the order is. Okay, now let me run the sort with the file name. Okay, so now if you see, it was in this order initially, right? So car was the first option, motorbike was the second, train was the next, Maruti, and then came Ferrari and Lamborghini. But if you look at the sorted result, then it's in the sorted manner, right? So first comes Amber, then comes Aprilia, then comes Audi, and then the others. So that's what sorting does. Okay, and the same thing can be done for two different files at the same time. So this was the automobiles.txt. Supposing I want to list down even my file2 contents, then I can just type file2.txt here, and the results of both the files will be in my terminal. Okay, but before that, let me just clear the screen so that it'll be easier for you to view the results. Okay, so now that I've cleared the screen, let me sort these two files. Okay, so the command is sort, and this is what I had previously, and let me add file2 to it. Okay, file2.txt. Now what this would do is the results of both these files, right, automobiles and file2, the results of those would be sorted in the alphabetical manner. Okay, now if I give an enter, as you can see here, first initially you have blank space. Okay, now that is because blanks are ahead of the capital A, right? This is the alphabetical order, correct? So first comes blank space, then comes white space, and then comes the characters. So once we are done with those things, then we have Amber, Aprilia, Audi. This was the order in which the files were listed in the automobiles, and right after C, D comes. Okay, now this line is part of the file 1, while these are part of automobiles. This was part of file2.txt. So yeah, these results were a part of the automobiles.txt file. The blank lines here, these were part of the file2.txt, and again these two lines, right, these were part of file2.txt. Okay, so this is what happens when you give two files as arguments. Now there are other options that I want to show you though. So there were flags like R flag, right? So R flag lists the results in the reverse order. Okay, I'm just going to clear the screen, and yeah, for clearing the screen, the shortcut is Control L. All right guys, so let's say sort automobiles.txt. Okay, it's cat, right? I don't want to do cat. I want to do sort automobiles.txt, and I want to use the flag -R. So when you use -R, it will display the result in the reverse order. So we have the reverse order in which Yamaha comes first and Amber comes last. So that is the reverse order. And we have another flag here. The other flag is the F flag, which will return the results in the case insensitive fashion. Okay, so that is the -F. And then if you go back to the slides, there is N option, right? So N will return the results in the numerical order. Now let me go to my terminal and let me use the N flag now. But of course, I don't think it will sort anything because there are no numericals here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the file 2.txt here. Okay, file 2.txt. Okay, so there are no numericals here either. What I can do is I can edit these details. So let me go vi and say file 2.txt, and I'm going to enter the insert mode. I'm going to remove all these unwanted lines. Okay, so I've removed all the blank lines. Now I'm going to put 1 here, I'm going to put 2 here, I'm going to add 3 to this line, I'm going to add 4 to this line. Okay, all right guys, or let's give the order 7 here. Okay, you have 2 here. Okay, so there are some kind of numericals ahead of before every line starts, right? So when we run the -n command now, the sort command with the n flag now, then it would sort these lines with respect to the lines with the numerical order. Okay, so first this line would be shown, the blank line. Okay, then you would be shown the the total line, then you would be shown the third line, and like that. So let me just escape, colon, and save and quit. Okay, now let me run that same sort command, sort -n file 2.txt. So as you can see, the alphabets are first sorted. Okay, so the lines where there are text characters or alphabetical letters, so those are displayed, and after that the lines that are formatted after that are in numerological fashion. Okay, so if I don't give the n, it would be a different fashion altogether. So earlier the file was just displayed in the regular numerological order. Okay, so where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the numbers came first and then came the text. But since we ran the -n, the alphabetical letters or the characters came first. Okay, after that it was sorted by numerical letters. So that's what the n flag does, and that brings us to the end of the sort commands. Okay, so after the sort command, the next one that we have in line is that of pipe command. Okay, so this is referred to as the pipe. So you will find this in your keyboards right above the enter button. Okay, where you have the backward slash. So in that button, if you press shift and if you press that button, you will get this pipe command. And what the pipe command helps you does is it lets you perform 2 operations in the same command. Like it'll let me search. Let's take the example that's specified here. Okay, we are using the grep to search for a particular string from a file, and we are using that, and then we are sorting that result. Okay, so since there are 2 operations involved, okay, one is the sort and one is the search. Since there are 2 operations involved in the same command, we separate the 2 operations with the help of the pipe command. So that's what this is. And as the definition says, the pipe command is used to output the result of one command as input to another command. Okay, the same thing can be said over here also. So we'll first search the file for a particular string, and whatever result you get, that will be given as input to the sort command over here, right? So this saves us time in not having to mention the file name after sort again. So we'll just be performing one grep search, and then we'll just whatever result comes, that result will go to the operation that's performed over here, right? So let me just go to the terminal and show you an example of this. I'm going to clear the screen, and let's run the grep command to search for am from the automobiles.txt. Okay, I'm going to use the pipe command and sort this. So these were the 2 results, right? So when you do a cat command, or when you just run the grep command with am, right? So what would happen is you'll get these 2 results, because these 2 lines or these 2 words have the am characters inside, right? Now when you give the sort, it would sort it alphabetically, right? And if I want to sort it in the other way, then I can just run the same command with the R flag. So when I do R, then this result will be sorted in the reverse fashion. So Yamaha comes first and Lamborghini comes first. So that's how the pipe command can be used to get the output from one operation and feed that output as the input to the next operation, right? So this is relatively a smaller topic. Okay, and we quite often we'd be using the pipe command when you want to use multiple operations in the same command. So that's about the pipe command. Okay, so let me just clear the screen and get back to my presentation and see what's my next slide all about. Okay, so now that I've shown you how to sort the contents of the file, let's go to the next slide, right? So the next section of this Linux tutorial is going to be about the copy, move, make directory, remove, remove directory, and the user permissions. All right. So let's get started with this section. Okay. CP stands for copy, and that will be the first slide that we're going to talk about. Okay. So as you know, copy is basically used to copy files or directories. Okay. The point to notice, files and directories. So in Windows, you have the option of right-clicking on any file or any folder and saying copy or copy paste or cut paste, right? That's in Windows, and you can do that even through the GUI in Linux. But how will you do it through the CLI, right? Through the terminal, you specify this command. You specify CP, and if you have any flag, you enter the flag, and then you specify the source and the destination. Okay, so the source is basically this will be the path of the folder that you want to copy, and this is the place where you want to copy it to. All right, so let's get back to executing and showing you a demonstration of this. So I'm going to go back to my terminal. So first of all, we are in the documents directory, and let's see what is there in this directory. Okay, there are the three files that we created, right? There is automobiles.txt, there is file1.txt, and file2.txt. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the automobiles.txt and paste it in my desktop. Okay, so let me just minimize this. So this is my desktop, right? So right now I don't have the automobiles.txt, but through the terminal I'm going to run a command which will copy the automobiles.txt to this folder. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize the terminal now to show you that it happens, okay, in real time. So what I'm going to do is ls, I'm going to say copy automobiles.txt. This is the source, and the destination is root home Edureka, and in Edureka it's the desktop folder, right? When I hit enter, there will be a new automobiles.txt file that will be created over here. So as you can see, the new file got created over here, and yeah, so it's a very simple command that you can execute. So you can do the same thing to even directories and files. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to the home directory, and from the home directory I'm going to go to the desktop directory and copy the LMS folder, right? So the LMS folder is again, it's a folder this time. It's not a file. So last time we copied a file. This time I want to show you how to copy the folder itself. Okay, I'm going to copy this folder and paste it somewhere else. So let me go to the terminal, cd, and I'm going to go to the desktop here. All right. So we have LMS here. So I'm going to say copy LMS. All right. So I'm going to remove the slash from here because I'm going to copy this folder now, and this would make it the source. That would make LMS the source, and the destination is we have to put the absolute path here, right? So we got to start from the root directory and go to home, Edureka, and let's say I want to put it in the documents directory. Okay. So something that is present in the desktop directory that is being copied and pasted inside the documents directory. Okay, so when we give enter, so guys, we are getting an error here, right? So it says copy CP omitting directory LMS. Can you all guess why that is the case? Can you all like understand the meaning of this error, omitting directory? Don't break your sweat too much, because the meaning is simple here. It has just omitted the directory. Okay, now the reason is, so that is because the CP command, it by default it copies only files. Okay, if you want to copy directories also, then you got to add another flag called R flag. So let me just quickly go to the slides and show you the functionality there. Okay, as you can see here, we have the R flag, right? So CP minus R, it is for recursive copy, and that is for copying directories also. Okay, and it copies also hidden files. If there are any hidden files, or if you have directories which you want to copy inside that directory, then it will copy that itself. So that is the thing, because you cannot copy directories without the R flag. You can only copy files. So that is the meaning here. And we have another flag here called the V flag, and that is verbose. Well, what verbose means is it prints informative messages. Supposing you're executing a command, okay, and supposing the command is going to take time, like it's going to take a good 5-10 seconds. Then during that time, it would print the status of the system. Like supposing it has completed like step 1 to step 3, okay, and it's stuck at step 4, then it would print that message. And as and when step 4 is completed, you will get a message saying that's completed. And yeah, similarly, it's like progress wise. It tells you what is the progress and what are the action that the system is taking and what step it's performing. So it just prints such informative messages, -V, okay. Okay, let's first start off with the I flag. Okay, so we have something called as the CP flag I. Okay, so when you give the I flag, it enters the interactive mode. So when you say interactive mode, it is because at times you might have files which will already be present in a particular directory. Okay, you saw me copy automobiles.txt once from documents to desktop. Okay, now if I do the same operation again, if I run the same command again, at that time it will automatically overwrite the file, right? Because the file name is the same. The automobiles.txt was the one that is there in my documents folder. And again, even over here on my desktop, it is documents. Sorry, it's automobiles. When I copy them, what would happen is that file would be replaced. Okay, now in that kind of a situation, when you're copying multiple files, you might want to be notified before something happens, right? So if you specify something like the I flag, then you will get an interactive mode. So the system will not take a decision on its own, but instead it will not use any defaults. Okay, that's what we mean by on its own. Okay, so it would ask you, it would prompt you for an answer. It will tell you that, okay, this file already exists in this directory, and do you want to replace it? And then it will give you an option Y or N. Y stands for yes, N stands for no. So that's what the CP and I flag does. And when you give the N flag, it will not overwrite the file. Okay, because by default it overwrites the file, and if you specify the N flag, it will not overwrite the file. But the whole concept here is it is based on the file name. What if the file name is the same and the file contents are different? Okay, at that situation you might want something like the flag U. Okay, now what the flag U does is it will update the destination file only when the source file is different from the destination file. So by using the N flag, you will make sure that the file is not overwritten. Okay, but then if you use the U flag, you will have another benefit. Okay, what will happen when you use the U flag is, so first it would check the file name. If the file names are different, then it would create a new file. If in case there is another file by the same name, then it would check the contents of that file. If the contents of that file and the file that's being copied, if they are the same, then it would not get copied, and it would only get copied when the content is different. So at that time you'll have two different files with the same name. So that's the advantage with the CP and U flag. Okay, so let's try executing these options. All right, so I'm just going to go back to my terminal here. So first and foremost, let's execute the R flag. Okay, it's capital R, so do note that. And when you say enter, so the item is copied. So if you go back to your documents folder, you can see that there's a new folder called elements that's been created. So this was initially not present, and it's present now. Okay, now what we'll do is I'll delete this. Okay, I'm going to minimize this, execute the same command along with the verbose flag. All right, so as you can see, the status of the system was also displayed in the meanwhile, even though I entered my text somewhere here. Yep, it's right here. Correct. So this was the earlier command that I executed without the verbose. Okay, here it just straight away copied the file. Okay, the LMS, the LMS folder to my documents folder. But when I gave V, the informative message also came, right? So it the step-by-step process of what all is being copied came. So first, this was the first folder being copied. This was the first sub folder being copied, and after that, all the other files that are being copied, each and every document, step by step. It is all listed down, and you'll get all those details here if you give -v in your command. So that's what the -v does. Okay, so I'm left to show you the I, N, and U flags, right? So what I'm going to do is, let's say, I just want to clear the screen now. Okay, I'm going to remove this command here and go back to the documents folder and show you that the LMS has been copied. Okay, with the verbose when I created this folder. Okay. Now, what I wanted to show you is I wanted to show you copy with the interactive mode. So earlier, if you see the desktop, there's already an automobiles.txt, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy automobiles.txt. I'm going to copy this one again to the desktop. But this time, it should, I'm going to use an I flag, and it will not overwrite the existing flag. So I'm going to say cp automobiles.txt to destination is home /edureka/ all right, I think I'm in the wrong directory right now. Okay, so I need to go one path back, switch to documents. All right, now here I need to copy the automobiles from here, right, and put it in the desktop. So home /edureka/ desktop. Okay, so I'm gonna copy the automobiles.txt over here. So when I give enter, the automobiles.txt has been copied here again. So let me just go back to my desktop and see that even though I've run this command 2 times, one now and one earlier and one now, just a couple of seconds back, there has been no duplicate that's been created. That's because this file has been overwritten. Okay, the one with the name automobiles has been overwritten with the latest command. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to use an iflag here. Like I told you, iflag is what gets you into interactive mode. So you will start interacting with the Linux kernel or the Linux shell over here. So as it says, the home Edureka desktop automobile.txt, it says overwrite. Do you want to overwrite this particular file because it's already present? If you want to overwrite, if you say Y and if you enter, then the file would be overwritten. Okay, but if you give N and enter, then that file would not be overwritten. So if I say no and if I enter, then that copy would have failed. Okay, but if I do the same thing again and if I press Y, it would have overwritten. The file would have been overwritten. So that is what the iflag is. And then you have another option, okay, of the N flag. So the N flag, what it does is it does not overwrite the file by default. So for that option, I told you that by default it overwrites, right? So I also showed you earlier that no duplicate was created and the existing file was overwritten. Supposing you don't want to do that, then you can just use the N flag, which would automatically indicate and tell the Linux runtime engine that not to overwrite this particular file. Okay, so you can have any number of files there. So even if the contents are different here, okay, so even in case the new file that's being copied has different content, okay, but it has the same name, then even in that case, by specifying the N file, it will not be overwritten, because there's a good chance that you might have made changes to the latest file, and by copying another file with the same name to that same directory, then there's a good chance that you'll be losing out on the changes that you made, right? So at that time you can use the N flag. So in fact, let me show you that with an example. What I'm going to do is right now we are in the documents directory, so I'm going to do a cat and automobiles. Okay, so these are the contents here, and let me update this. Okay, what I'm going to add is I'm going to add another company of another bike. Okay, let's say we are adding KTM to that list. Okay, so when I do Control D and exit the interactive mode, and if I do cat automobiles txt, then KTM would be added over here. Okay, now this automobiles file in the documents, right now, this is the updated one. Okay, but in the desktop, the updated file is not present. Okay, in the desktop, the file with only this much of content is there. Now I'm going to execute the command with the N flag. Okay, so with the N flag, it's basically indicating that you're not supposed to overwrite the file. Okay, so when it says that, when it finds out that automobiles.txt is present over there also in the desktop also, it would not copy the file at all. Okay, so when I give enter, and of course, so there's nothing here. Now if I go to the desktop, okay, if I click on automobiles.txt here, you can see that KTM is not present. All right, but however, when I close it and if I remove the N flag, right, if I remove this flag and execute it, and if I go back to the automobiles.txt, you'll find that KTM is updated. Awesome, right? So that's the power of this N flag. Okay, so that is the end of all the different flags that I was about to show you from my PPT. Okay, so additionally, there is one other thing that I want to show you. Okay, now I showed you how to copy from source to destination. Okay, and now, what if you know the path of something and you want to copy it to your present directory, to where you are currently. So this is basically, I'm just teaching you this option to save some time. At times you might want some shortcuts or some hacks, right? You don't want to provide the complete path everywhere. So at that situations, at that scenarios, you can use this hack. And let me explain that before I execute it in my terminal. So what I'm saying is, right now I'm in my desktop and I have only my automobiles and my readme text files. Okay, now, but in my documents folder, I have 3 other texts. I have file1.txt and file2.txt. Okay, let's say I just want to copy the file2.txt. What will I do if I want to copy my file2.txt into my desktop? I'll have to go to my documents folder, then put the cp command and then enter the file name and then copy it to this folder, right? I have to specify the path of this desktop. So instead of that, there is another hack over there. Okay, now instead of doing that, what I can do is I can just go to my terminal. I need to first go to the desktop folder, but okay, so I'm gonna go one step back. I'm gonna say change to desktop, And here, yes, there is only automobiles.txt and there is readme.txt. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the cp command such that I copy file from this particular directory to the current directory. Okay, so the file2.txt, if you remember, that is present in my documents directory, right? So I'm going to specify the path to the documents directory, and the path to documents directory is slash home Edureka and documents. Okay, and the file name is file2.txt. okay, I'm going to copy this file which is under this path to my current directory. Okay, instead of having to specify my complete current directory, I can just give one dot. So this one dot represents the current working directory. Okay, I'm currently in my desktop, and what this command would do is it would copy this file into this current directory. Okay, now when I give enter, and if I go back to my desktop, you'll see that the file2.txt has been created. Okay, that's because it went to this path, picked up this file and pasted it in my current directory. Okay, so that's what this is about. All right, so this is what I wanted to show you guys. This was something additional which was not there on the slides. So I'm done with that. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so next up we have is the move command. Okay, so the MV, like CP stands for copy, the MV here stands for move. Okay, and this is used at times when you want to cut paste something. Okay, this would, when we used copy, then the original copy of that file was also present in the existing directory and it was created in another directory, right? But if you use the MV command, then it's gonna basically work like cut paste, where it will remove the content from the source directory and the only copy will be present in the destination directory. All right, so let me straight away get started. It's not too much of an explanation needed over here because it's self-explanatory. If you use the I flag, it basically enters into interactive mode again, like before. So the U flag is again the same as what it was in the copy command. It updates the destination file only when the source file is different from the destination file. And the MV-V, again, it would move, it would print the system state. Okay, prints the source and the destination files, gets into the interactive mode where not interactive mode, it basically means the system status will be displayed over here. Okay, that's what the verbose is all about. So let me go back to my terminal and show you how this copy is done. All right, so let me clear the screen, and currently I'm in my desktop folder. Okay, and here I have these files. I have automobiles.txt and readme and file2. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the move command to move file2.txt to another destination. I'm going to move it to the LMS, right? So when I give LMS, okay, this means that this move command will work such that this file will be moved to LMS folder. Okay, let me give enter and go back to my desktop and find that it's missing. That's because I ran a command over there. If I go to LMS, however, I'll find the file2.txt over here. All right, awesome, right? So that's what the MV file does. And supposing I want to similar to copy, you can move multiple files at the same time. All right, so I can move, supposing I go back to my desktop, okay, and I'll find that there is automobiles and readme. Suppose I want to move both of these to the LMS directory, then I can do that also. I can just simply give move, I can give automobiles.txt and readme.txt and specify the destination. I can move to any other folder or I can move to LMS folder. If I'm moving it to LMS folder, then I just need to give LMS. Okay, but however, if I'm moving to another folder, then I got to start from the root, say home Edureka, and from here, let's say I want to go to downloads. Okay, so downloads, if I want to go, I'll give this path, I'll give enter. And if you notice, both are missing from my desktop. And if I go to my Edureka and if I go to downloads, I can find the two files over here. So that's how simple it is, guys. So that's the move command. And if you want to see the system status, then you can use the V flag like we use for CP. So a similar log will be generated and shown. If you want to enter interactive mode, then you can use the I flag, right? If you're moving like two files, right, at that time you might need the interactive file. So similar to copy, where if you're moving to the destinations folder where there's already another file with the same name, then at that time you might want to use the I flag. It would ask you whether you want to override it or not. If you don't want to override it at all, then you can just give the N flag. But there again, if you don't want to use the N flag either, then you can use the -U flag, which would update the destination file only when the source and the destination files are different. Okay, so these are the different flags that can be used with MB. So basically the flags that can be used here are the same as the flags that can be used with the copy command. So guys, that's it with the move command, and we can go to the next slide. Okay, we can go to the next topic, but before that there is one more functionality that I want to show you with respect to both copy and move. I actually forgot to show you this aspect. Okay, now for this, let me first show you the GUI aspect. Okay, all right, I go to my Edureka, and if you go to my documents, you'll find all these 3 text files and also my LMS folder, right? Now, whether be it copy or whether be it move commands, I've showed you how to copy like 1 file or 2 files or 3 files, okay? But what if you have like 25 files, right? So what you have, like, I mean, just think about this. What if you're a proper Linux user and you want to just transfer all your files of some particular format, right? You want to just transfer it to another folder, you want to take a backup or something like that. What would you do? Instead of, you can do a control A over here and choose all the files, okay? Or you can choose one after the other like this. But to the CLI, how will you do it? Correct? So you have such problems, right? So for that, we have options also for CLI, and those work with both CP and the move commands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how that is done. So for that purpose, I'm going to first go to my documents directory. I'm going to make that my PWD. So I'll just go one back, and here I am. Go to documents. Okay, now I'm here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear the screen. So of course, for clearing the screen, the shortcut is Control L. Okay, if you guys have forgotten that, and I also mentioned that earlier. So Control L is the shortcut for that. So yeah, we have automobiles.txt, file 1 and file 2, and LMS. So we have these 4 files and 1 folder there. Okay, now if I want to move this one to the directory, then there's another option. So what I can do is I can use something called as regular expressions. Okay, regular expressions is one topic which I'm going to cover in detail later during the session, but just because we're in the CP or in the move commands stage of this demonstration, I want to continue and I want to show you this also. Okay, I want to just get finished with this part, so you will get an idea of what I'm saying when you see me do this. So here we have these 4 files. So first let's use the copy command. So if I want to copy all the files which are in the form of a file, okay, so they're all in the .txt format, right? So what I can do is I can just do a CP. I can click on dot, or rather asterisk .txt. Okay, now what this essentially does is, instead of searching for the text file by its name, when you specify an asterisk, it searches for all the files with the .txt, okay, which is ending with a .txt. So that's what this would do. And when we say CP followed by asterisk.txt, it means copy all the files that are ending with .txt. So in our case, we have automobiles.txt, file1.txt, and file2.txt, right? So what this command would do is it would copy these things and put it in the path where I suggest here. So let's say I want to put it in another folder. Okay, let me start off from the root, home, Edureka. Then here I think we have, we have these options, right? Okay, this is the documents. So in the Edureka we have the music folder, we have downloads, pictures. Okay, downloads, of course I've already copied something in there. So what I'll do is I'll move that to the music folder. Okay, so the music directory. So I'm going to say this and give enter. So your copying has been successful. So if you go back to the music directory, you'll see that there are 3 new files. One is automobiles, the other one is file 1, and the other one is file 2. Okay, now the same thing can be done for even move, right? The same way we executed a copy, we can also execute the move command. Move is going to completely move it. It's more like cut pasting, okay, similar to how you remember from Windows. Let's move it to pictures. Okay, so currently in pictures is nothing, and in music we have these 3. So when I execute the move command, this folder should become empty and they should all go to the pictures folder. All right, so move. Okay, but we have a problem for that. What we need to do is we got to move to our music folder, right? So this would probably show an error. So I'm going to first go back, or rather go to music folder. Okay, we are in documents, right? So what we're going to do is cd music, all right, and I have my commands here, right? So here I'll execute that move command. So it was this one. I'm just going to replace cp with mv. Okay, so from my music directory, it's going to move all the folders or files which will have the .txt format. Okay, all the files, not folders. it will move all the files with the .txt format, and it will move it to home/edureka/ let's move it to pictures. What do you say? Okay, so when I give enter, that would have moved. So let's go back to our folders, music, there's nothing here. This has been cut pasted to the pictures directory. All right, so this is what I wanted to show you. Okay, this is what I missed showing you earlier while executing the cp command, but yeah, here we are. I've done this. And similarly, if you want to go also, if you're from the music directory and if you want to move something to the present working directory, even that is possible. Okay, so another possibility which I would like to show you is that of going back, going to pictures, and then we have all this here. Right? I'm going to clear the screen, ls again. We have automobiles, file1.txt and file2.txt, right? So we can do a move command, and so right now we are in the so let me clear the screen again. So I'm going to do a cd, I'm going to clear the screen, and currently I'm going to do an ls. So some of our items are present in pictures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back to music. If I do an ls, there's nothing over here. So what I'll do is I'll say move /home/edureka/ pictures dot, okay, asterisk first dot txt, and I want to move it to the current directory. So when I do this, again from the pictures, everything would have moved back to music. All right, so that is the other thing that I want to show you. Okay, so similarly it works for even the copy command. I'm pretty sure you'll understand how it works, so I'm not going to waste too much time on that. Okay, I've cleared my screen, and now let's start with the next topic. Okay, I'm going to go back to my slides, and yeah, the next topic is make directory commands. Okay, so the next topic is make directory. Okay, that's what mkdir stands for, make directory. All right, so it's simple. Again, if it's all about creating a new directory or creating a new folder. Okay, so to create a new directory, you just specify mkdir and the path. Okay, the directory path. Okay, that would create a new subdirectory in that path. Okay, guys. So currently we are in the documents, right? So I'm going to do an ls. I have these many things. So I'm going to do a mkdir and create a new folder over here. So that folder name is going to be let's say folder 1. Okay, when I do this, a new folder is created. So when I do the ls command again, so you can see that the folder 1 is extra. Okay, it was not there the previous time that we executed the ls command. Okay, so that's how you create a new folder. So it's pretty simple. Now comes the other question. Okay, I can go into the folder 1. Okay, of course there'll be nothing inside. Now what if I want to create multiple folders, okay, and parent directories? Let's say something like I want to create folder 1 inside which I want to create a folder 2 and create a folder 3. Is that possible? Okay, so I'm going to try doing that and show you if it's possible or not. Okay, so I'm going to say make directory folder 1 / folder 2. Okay, this would be folder 2 because I'm already inside folder 1. This would be folder 3 and folder 4. Okay, so this basically will run the make directory command inside folder 1 and it will make a directory 2, 3 and 4. Now when I give enter, these folders should be created. Ideally they should be created. Okay, ideally speaking. So let me just verify everything once and show it to you. So it was documents. This was the new folder I created, folder 1. There is nothing inside. Okay, now from the terminal, if I click enter, it says make directory cannot create directory folder 2, 3 and 4. Okay, because there's no such file or directory. Okay, do you all know why that is? I asked you specifically, can we do it? That is because when we try to enter one directory, it's possible. Okay, when like in this case we specified just one directory, right? Just folder 1, so it created the directory once. But in this case there are too many directories that we need to create. Okay, it's like 2, 3 and 4. How can make directory create so many folders? Because this is going to be in the form of a parent, child or a subdirectory, right? We are creating folder 2 inside which there's a folder 3, inside which there's a folder 4. So in this case mkdir is not enough. So this is when we need to use another flag called the -p flag. That stands for parent. Okay, let me go to my slides and just cover that aspect once. So as you can see here, there's a flag called -p, okay, and what it does is it creates both a new parent directory and a subdirectory. And it's essentially used only when you're creating like 2-3 directories, and I mean you're creating one directory and a couple of subdirectories under that directory. Okay, so that's when you use this. Alternatively, you can also use this -- parents, all right? And if you want to create one parent directory and multiple subdirectories inside that directory, then you can use these flower brackets. Okay, inside the flower brackets, you can have the different folder names. Okay, so let me just quickly go to the terminal and show you that aspect. So make directory, these were there, and now I'm going to give -p, and when I execute this, everything would have been created. So let me do a cd folder 2. Now do an ls, there's a folder 3. Now let me do this and enter, and let me do an ls again, there's a folder 4. Of course here there would be nothing, right? So let me enter this folder 4, and here there would be nothing, folder 4. So that's what I was talking about. Okay, let me also verify that once from the terminal. Folder 1, we created a folder 2, inside which there's a folder 3 and there's a folder 4. Okay guys, so this is what we just created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go back to my folder 1 here. Okay, in fact, yeah, okay, folder 1 should be good. Now I want to show you executing the same command with the flower bracket, right? I told you that creating a flower bracket will let you create multiple directories inside that directory. So if I'm going to say make directory folder, because it's inside folder 1, I can create one here, folder 2, I can say comma, folder 3, comma, folder 4. Okay, and if I close this flower bracket, then these 3 sub directories or folders would be created inside my folder 1. All right, so I've given enter here. If I go back to my GUI, so I go inside folder 1. So initially there was one folder 2. Okay, that was the folder 2 which I created earlier. Okay, and now I created folder 2 all in small f, and small f here. So folder 2, folder 3, folder 4 was created now. This one was created earlier. Okay guys, so that's how you make directories. In fact, you can even append this with a parent. Say supposing you're now in folder 1, right? You can say make directory, you can say f2, put a slash, and then inside this f2 folder these subdirectories will be created. Okay, now if I give enter, I know what the problem here is. It says because f2 is not created right now, correct? This is the time when you got to use the -p command, parents command, right? So which I showed you earlier. So now that I've used the -p, so the parent is created and the children are also created. So if I go back to folder 1, this was f2 is what I created recently. All right, so inside f2 there should be folder 2, folder 3, folder 4. All right, so this is what we can do with respect to make directory commands. All right, so let me close this and go back to my slides. Okay, and go to the next topic. Okay, so next up is the rmdir and the rm commands. Okay, so this is the remove, and this stands for remove directory. Now there's a subtle difference between the two. Okay, now when you say, okay, the basic difference between the two is that when you say remove directory, it will only remove that particular directory. But when you say remove, it can also remove the subdirectories or the child directories inside that one. So let me just go to my terminal and show you how these are executed. Okay, I'm going to go to my terminal. So currently I am in my folder 1, right? So let's go to folder 2 and then do an ls cd folder 3 ls cd folder 4. Okay, of course there's nothing here. So what I can do is I'm in folder 3 now. Okay, ls again. Yes, I'm in folder 3, and if I want to remove this folder, then I can do remove directory folder 4. All right, so when I do this particular folder would have been deleted. Now from folder 2 I can again remove folder 3. Okay, similar to how I removed folder 4. But how about I go one more path back? Okay, so right now I'm in ls. Okay, so if I do a pwd, you'll find that I'm in folder 1. Okay, and when I do an ls, I have f2 folder 2, I have capital folder 2. This is where my folder 3 and folder 4 is present. Okay, so I have that, and then I have folder 3 and I have folder 4. Now however, if I try doing a remove directory, And if I try to remove folder 2, right, it will not work. It failed because the folder 2 which we are trying to delete, right, from inside folder 1 we are trying to delete the folder 2. This is that folder 2, and inside this folder 2 there's another folder, that is folder 3. Let me just show it to you once so that I can remove your confusion. So inside this folder 2 I have folder 3, okay, and because I'm trying to delete this folder 2, it's not able to delete because there is already a folder 3 inside this folder. That is the problem with remove directory. So guys, I just cleared the screen, and let me just do an ls again. So now I'm going to show you how to remove these folders. I showed you removing folder 4, okay. So inside this folder 3 I went and I removed folder 4, okay. Now I'm going to show you how to remove multiple folders, okay, at the same time. Now let's say I'm running the same remove directory again. So I'm going to say remove folder 2, and when I give enter, it says failed to remove folder 2 because the directory is not empty, okay. Do you know what the problem is? It's telling, right, because the directory is not empty, it's not able to delete. So because folder 3 is contained inside folder 2, it's not able to delete this folder. So if I want to delete folder 2 also, then what I got to do is, I got to first delete the folder 3 and then delete the folder 4. So I have to provide the absolute path of the child directory. Okay, so I'm going to say remove directory, okay, same like before. I'm going to say folder 2 / folder 3. When I run this command, then my folder 3 will get deleted, okay. The child will get deleted, but the parent will still be active. Folder 2 will be active, okay, because when I use the rmdir with folder 2 and folder 3, only folder 3 will get deleted. Let me show you why that's the case. When I give enter, when I do an ls, folder 2 should be available. See, folder 2 is available, but when I do a folder 2, there's nothing in here, okay, there's nothing in here. So if you want to do that, if you want to delete both the parent and the child at the same time, you got to use a -p flag. So let me show you to use a -p flag, okay. So I'm just going to make the folder 3 now, and I'm going to show you how to use a p flag. So similar to how we use while creating a folder, we got to use the same remove directory, okay, rmdir with the -p and folder 2 and folder 3, folder 2 / folder 3. So in this case, both the folder 2 and the parent and the child will get deleted, okay. Enter. When I do an ls, I don't have a folder 2 here, okay. This one is also deleted. So that's what a -p flag does. Now let me just make a new directory, and what I want to show you is the verbose, okay. So I'm gonna make directory. So again, the ones which I deleted have come back again, would have been created again. So I want to show you the usage of the verbose directory. When I add a v here, as per the slides it said, right, verbose. So when I add a v here and when I hit enter, okay, I've done the make directory again. So I have to actually remove the directory now, okay. Now when I say remove directory and when I try to print the verbose -pv, so it says first it's deleted the folder 3, okay, which is inside folder 2. After deleting that, it has come and deleted folder 2. Okay, so that's what this is all about. This is what you need to know about the remove directory commands. Now let me just clear the screen. So guys, now let's see how the rm command works. Okay, now the rm command here, as it says from the slides, it can be used to remove even non-empty directories. Okay, if we use the rm with the r flag, and if we use the r and p flags together, then it removes the non-empty directories, including the parent and the subdirectories. Okay, so the one limitation that we had with rmdir command was that we could not remove non-empty directories. We had to first empty them and then only delete them. Okay, otherwise we had to specify the entire path and then use the p flag to remove all the parents and all the child subdirectories in that path, right? That was the limitation that we had with remove directory. But in rm we don't have that problem, because let's see, okay, in ls we have so many folders. Okay, so if I try going to f2, okay, and I do an ls here, then I have 3 different folders: folder 2, folder 3, folder 4. Okay, now if it's an rmdir command, it cannot technically delete this folder called f2. F2 is basically a non-empty directory. Inside F2 there are other directories like folder 2, 3 and 4. So let me just show it to you once. So inside F2 we have 3 folders: folder 2, folder 3 and folder 4. So with the rmdir command we cannot definitely remove it, but with F2 we have a chance of removing it. Okay, That's because we can make use of the R flag here, okay? But however, this will also, it will delete F2 and its subfolders, okay? So let me do an ls, and if you can see here, initially under folder 1, we had F2 and these three, okay? But now we don't have that under F2 because that whole F2 folder is missing. If I go back to my folder 1 here, you'll see that the F2 is missing over here too. That's because the remove, right, it removed the whole F2 folder in spite of it containing some folders, okay? And that's what the R flag does. That's the advantage of using the R flag, okay? So if the same thing, if we use the R flag with the V flag, then it will print the status also. It's like the verbose, right? It'll print, it'll tell you what all has been deleted and how it has been deleted. So that's the advantage with using RM over RMDIR, okay? At times this is more beneficial. So I'm just going to clear the screen, and getting back to my presentation, I'm done with all the concepts in this slide. So let me go on to the next topic, okay? So the next topic is going to be that of working with user permissions, okay? It's very important for a Linux administrator to know what these user permissions are, okay? Because the different files will be there, different directories will be there, and he has to determine what kind of access will be available for which user, right? So that's what is controlled here. So the different permissions are basically read, write, and execute, okay? R stands for read, W stands for write, and execute is X, okay? So initially you'll get this kind of an output, okay? You know what, let me go to my terminal and show you what happens when you run an ls-l command, because user permissions is something which will appear and which you can control via the ls-l command, right? Because when you do that, all the different file contents, whether it's a directory or whether it's another file, all those things along with their permissions will be visible in long format, right? So let me go to my terminal first and go to cd. All right, now when I do an ls, I have a list of all these documents, okay? But however, when I do an ls-l, I get it in long format, okay? So I get it something like this. So for each folder, I have the permission set. So for desktop, I have the permission sets, and then I have the other components, okay? I'm going to explain what this entire component, what the entire row means. So to not let you get too complicated, first I'm going to explain only this part, okay? The first 10 characters. If you see here, the first 10 characters are these, and I will explain this part first, and then I'll explain this set, these three blocks, and then I'll explain the remaining blocks, okay? So getting back to this first block, in my slides, you can see that the first block, it determines what is the file type, okay? It's either the file or directory type, in fact. If that is a directory, then it would be represented by D, okay? If you have a D as the first character over here, then that's a directory, okay, as it says. But it can also be any other thing. If it's a hyphen like this, then it means that it's a normal file, okay? But in the first letter, if it's a C, then it means that it's a character special file. And if there is B over here in the spot of the first letter, then it's a binary special file. So basically, there can be 4 different letters over here. It can be either a hyphen or D, B, or C, representing 4 different aspects, okay? So that is the first information that you have about that particular file. And then you have 3 different blocks, okay? So the next 9 letters are going to determine the user permissions, okay? And those 9 are divided into 3, 3, 3. Okay, so the first 3 represent the user permissions, okay? The second block having 3 RWX representatives are those of group permissions, and the final block represents other permissions, okay? This means other users. Now this user is the actual user who is logged into the system, okay? That particular user. So this is the user permissions, this is the group permissions which the user belong to and what the other group can view, and this is with respect to the other users, okay? That's what is meant by this, others. So if we have, and the order always goes by RWX and RWX, and here also it will be RW and X, okay? So that is the order, read, write, and execute. So if the first 3 blocks are all RW and X, then it means that the user has all the 3 permissions, or the owner of the file or the user has the read, write, and the execute permissions, okay? And in this place, if there are 3 characters, right, R, W, and X in this order, it means that the owner or the user has the permissions to read, write, and execute that particular file, okay? And if there is R, W, and X in the next block, then it means that the group has the read, write, and execute permissions on that particular file, So every file that's created, right, it will have a user and it will also have a default group that it will be assigned to. So all the users a part of that group will have the read, write and execute permissions. Okay, but whereas the last three here, it stands for other users permission. So there can be multiple users, right? The same system can have multiple users. One of course will be the root user, the other will be the owner or you, and besides you there can be any number of users. It can be your friends, your colleagues, or other people. So this others represents that. And if you have a blank in any place, okay, so in this case there's a blank over here. In place of W there's a blank. It means that this others, they don't have the write access, they only have the read access and the execute access. All right. And similarly, if you go back to the terminal, okay, and if you see here, take the example of this particular file, desktop. Okay, desktop folder is where we were executing a lot of commands, right? It is under the Edureka folder. So yeah, this was the folder that we are talking about. The desktop right now, it's a directory basically, okay, that you all agree with. Then these three characters represent that the person who's using it. Okay, right now the person who's using it, because I'm logged in right now and I've logged in with this username, right? Sorry for that, guys. Yeah, and I've logged in with this username, right, Edureka. So me being the owner and me being the user, I have the read, write and execute permissions. Okay, but the group that I belong to, okay, that group does not have the read, write and execute permissions. And the group that this file belongs to, now because this file is either owned or used by me, okay, now because I'm the user, I have this access. And then this file will also belong to a group, right? So whenever you create this file, it will be assigned to that particular user creating it, and it will be assigned to a default group. So we are talking about that group here. Okay, and that particular group does not have all three rights. It has only the read permission and the execute permission. It doesn't have the write permission. Okay, and the same thing can be said for even the other users. So the other users in that system who will be using that system, they will only have the read and execute access on the desktop. Okay. But whereas if you take the example of this file1.txt, right, which I created some time back during this session, this one, if you see, the permissions are such that the first one is a hyphen. Okay, what hyphen technically means is it's a normal file. Okay, I explained that hyphen is normal, B stands for binary special file, and C stands for character special file. So of course we don't have those options here. We don't have the B and C options. But what you got to understand is that this is a normal file and this is a directory. Okay, wherever there is D. So since this is a file, the access for the user is such that I have the read and write access. Okay, but I can't execute it. The user can't execute it. And when it comes to the group, even the group has the read and write access, but you cannot execute it. The other users, however, they have only the read access and they cannot execute this particular file, right? So they cannot execute or they cannot write this particular file. So that's what these group permissions mean. And if you go forward from group permissions, there are more other blocks, right? So let's go back to the slides and see what they stand for. So in this slide, let's talk about the next three blocks. Okay, so the next block is that of a number. Okay, you have a number over here and that represents the symbolic links. All right, the block after that is the one that represents the owner name, and the one followed by that represents the group name. Okay, so that is with respect to these three blocks. All right, and then after that comes the file size of the particular file, and then you have the timestamp, the time when the file was created, the file or the folder was created. This is the actual file size of the block. Okay, now that's what the user permissions here represent. So if I quickly go back to the terminal and show you, this is basically the symbolic link. This is the owner name. This is the group name of the file. This is the block size. Okay, and this is all in kilobytes. Okay, and this is the timestamp. And this is of course the name of the file, right? So we have the name of the file, and that file will have first be the file type, then user permissions, then symbolic links, then the owner name, then group name, then the file size, then comes the timestamp at the end. So that's what the different file permissions are, the read, write and execute. And if you want to modify any of these file permissions, then it's also possible. Okay, now let me go to my slides and show you how that's possible. Let me show you some theory first. Okay, so first of all, if you want to change the permissions, then you can use the chmod command. Okay, you can use the chmod command as shown over here, and you can use it to change the access permission of both the files and the directories. If you want to change the owner of the particular file, okay, change the owner of that particular file or directory, then you can use the chown command. And then if you want to change the group ownership of that file, then you can use the chgrp. Okay, So when you use the chmod command, you got to specify whom are you referring to. Are you referring to the user? Are you referring to the group? Or are you referring to the other people? Okay, the other users. You got to say that, and then you got to use either a plus symbol or a minus symbol. Okay, when you use plus, it means that you're adding these two rights. So in this case, when you're saying G plus WX, so G stands for group, right? So as you can see from this particular slide, G stands for group, U stands for users, and others stands for O. Okay, and all stands for A. Okay, so as per this, if you're using G over here, then it means that you're talking about the group and you're adding the W, that is a right, and the execute permissions. That means you're giving them the W and the right and the execute permissions. Okay, and after that you got to specify the file name. So this means it will modify the permissions to this for this particular file. And similarly, you can use the equal to symbol and also the minus symbol. So when you use the equal to symbol, then whatever rights you have initially, that will be overwritten. So when you say chmod u is equal to rwx, and then it doesn't matter what the previous set of permissions were. Then the previous set of permissions will be replaced by whatever you specify here. So you'll be setting that particular user to have the read, write, and execute access for that file. Okay, and then you can in fact specify, you can set access control for multiple people. You can set it for groups, users, all at the same time. So in this place, this command, we've set it for the users here. We are setting it read, write, and execute for users. And then after that, we are setting it for the other people. Okay, for the other users, we are removing the write and the execute access. Okay, the execute permissions. So let me just quickly go to my terminal and show you that. So currently, let's take the example of this pictures. Okay, let's take an example of this particular folder. The user, that is me, I have the read, write, and execute permissions. The group has read and execute only. Okay, and they, of course, the other users, they also have only the read and execute. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say chmod. I don't want to change my permissions. Okay, so I would rather change the permissions that my group has. So I would say G is equal to read and W. Okay, so if you see here, right now the group has read and execute. Okay, I don't want to give them execute. So if I want to remove execute, I have to do G minus R, and then I have to give comma G plus W. Okay, but those are two different arguments, right? So instead of using two different arguments, I can just give an equal to, which would replace this entire list with the current arguments. So instead of having R and X, I will replace that with R and W, read and write. Okay, I'll give a command, and then we have others here, the other users, they have read and execute again. So what I'll do is I'll say O minus execute, because I want to give others only the read access. Okay, so in this case, when I do this, the X over here, that will become hyphen, and the hyphen here will become W. Okay, I'll be enabling the W for them and removing the execute, and for these people I'll be removing the execute. And now that I've specified what are the permissions and who are the recipients, I'm going to give the file name. So let's say pictures. Okay, so I'm going to give the ls minus l command again, and now you can see that if you go to pictures, it's been reset. So the others have only the read access, the others are blank. Okay, and the group have the read and write access, and this execute has been taken away from them. So that is with respect to the read, write, and execute permissions that users can have. All right, so I'm just going to clear the screen and go back to my slides. So similarly, you can change even the ownership of certain files and certain groups. Okay, so if you use a ch own, okay, ch change ownership, with that's what it stands for, and when I follow that with the username and the file name, then this particular file will have a new user, or will have a new owner, and this will be the username. Okay, and similarly, even the group command works in the same fashion. So this is something that you can always work on, and you can figure it out. All right, guys, so that brings us to the end of the third part of our demonstration. Okay, so we still have a couple of more topics left, but unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to cover it today because we've already exceeded the time limit. So what we'll do is we'll continue the remaining topics in tomorrow's session. Okay, so in tomorrow's session, we'll talk about Linux repositories, tar files, environment variables, regular expressions, processes, adding users, and networking. Okay, when I say networking, it's about SSH. So these will be the topics that I will be covering in tomorrow's session. Okay, so guys, on that note, let me conclude today's session. All right, and I'll meet you all tomorrow same time. All right, guys. Okay, Hemant, great. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, good night, folks. See you all. I hope you enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply to them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to our Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!